этом городе любили, в этом городе ходили, в этом городе гулять. Как шли мы с разговорами, с гитарой, с переборами, любили мы подружкам напевать. Война суровая зажгла огни багровые, хлебнули мы свинцового дождя. И оставляя город наш, любимый светлый город наш, мы в сердце уносили, уходя. Улица Садовая, скамеечка кленовая, Ростов, город Ростов-на-Дону.
Туда вернулись новые коня, коня подкованы, цветая красных вместе с головой. Наш город слава новая, наш город жизнь суровая, идем и вновь торговый мостовой.
Ростов-на-Дону, синие звезды небосклон.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 751 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Putin's men have been absolutely beating the hell out of some Russians today, and there's a lot of violence going on around Russia. So it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Russia, the news of the war in Ukraine, and the war at the ballot box. There's been a lot going on today, and we have seen some Russians getting into some heated brawls, apparently heating up the polling booths with some Molotov cocktails, and also watching the Free Russian Army rapidly advance onto the city of Belgorod today, bringing it under MLRS fire for the first time ever since the beginning of the invasion. There is a lot that has gone on today, and I've said that so many days in a row now, but today is another one of those days that is going to go down in the pages of history as being one of those unbelievable days where so much happened that was really history worthy to be remembered for the rest of all time, especially within Eastern Europe. And I'm going to be bringing y'all into one of those first major bits of news today as another large, massive, and really important oil refinery in the city of Kaluga ended up getting hit overnight by a Ukrainian drone attack, knocking the refinery out like many others. Here's the clip showing all this explosion. This kind of ties into everything else that has happened inside of Russia, but really quickly, let me make sure that I have this one correct. And let's see here, where in the world is it? Is it this one? Because this clip is also, I believe, in Kaluga as well. And this one is. So we're actually going to be moving this from Lipetsk and up to Kaluga, because this is the actual clip I'm looking for. And then we have another one from a few days ago that is also quite interesting. And that one actually belongs in Ryazan. So let me see here if I can get this one and move it right over there. But here is the clip of another refinery inside of the town of Kaluga being attacked overnight. And this was a very interesting one because the Russian army is right here. Like this, the guy who's filming is a part of the Russian army. So check this out. Oh, dude, this guy literally said, that guy sat there and heard the drone rev up its engine overhead for just a second. He said, guys, I think we're supposed to be doing our job. And then like the refinery turned into a nuclear bomb. Listen to it. Oh my lord. Well,
do you think they ever thought to maybe take their guns out and at least try to fire at the thing or something? Don't just stand there.
I don't even think they knew it was coming in, Matthew. I think that thing cut off its engine and just idled its way into a glide straight at the at the refinery. And these guys never even knew it was going to hit until the engine whirred up right in the last few seconds before it was going to impact. And then that guy was like, hey guys, I swear, I hear a drone. And it just blew up right on the refinery. But that knocked out another oil refinery inside of the Russian Federation. And once again, greatly reducing the amount of oil, or fuels more so, that can be produced from the oils that are made or, drilled from inside of Russia. Meanwhile, over in the city of Ryazan, keeping on to our oil refinery news, the city of Ryazan also had its oil refinery go offline 2 days ago, well actually a day ago exactly I believe, thanks to the attacks that occurred on the town. And we got brand new footage of this attack today, and it showed us a much more clear perspective of what's going on in this area and what happened leading up to the attack and the successful drone impacts on the refinery, which have shut it down even to now. While we're playing this clip, I cannot stress enough that these drone attacks that the Ukrainians are conducting, like with that drone right there that we're watching fly past the screen, are putting a massive amount of strain onto the Russian Federation. Not just the government, but the civilian infrastructure as well as the armed forces. Pretty much every single facet of Russian life revolves around these oil refineries staying online and the Russian oil industry staying productive. If the Russian oil industry collapses, most of the Russian economy will actually collapse with it. And also, with the refineries being hit and knocked out, like we're once again seeing much better in this clip, it also brings about the fact that the Russians are not going to be able to produce enough oil to actually keep the military running for long, or really anything inside of Russia running for that long. And as this drone is now looping back around and appears to have done a complete orbit over the refinery, as we're now seeing in this never-before seen clip, it's now coming in on its attack run to hit the actual refinery facilities. And there it goes. Hitting the refinery again. These drones also hit in pretty strategically important locations, usually targeting the areas that have complex mechanical components inside of them that may be, may require to be imported from the West, places like the United States, which actually produce a large amount of advanced oil-producing components. However, while all that was going on today, there was something else that was fairly big that puts a lot of strain on Russia, but the Russians like to pretend like everything is fine with it and nothing is wrong and things are perfect and Russia is a free country like every other country is. It is election day, and what we heard today is that apparently there was a lot of violence that went down at the polling booths. According to what we're seeing here, this looks to be a little bit of a fire that was put out with a fire extinguisher. We can see the person putting out the fire right there. And this little picture here actually comes from a video clip that we have from inside of Moscow. We're going to be showing you all that here in a minute. But they said that there were several different instances, violations, that happened at the polling stations today during the election. And when they say that, that is a bit of an understatement. The kind of incidents that happened today ranged from bombings on polling booths to fire attacks to the Russian police attacking people who weren't voting the right way. It was absolute chaos at the polling booths throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation, but specifically within the major cities of Moscow and St. Petersburg, where a lot of our clips and news come from of today's election. Moving on into our first clip, we got to see one concerned Russian apparently setting fire to one of the polling booths, or voting booths, inside of Moscow. So here's our clip. We can see the polling booth right over here. And we can see the voter apparently voting for Flame and catching the booth on fire. I mean, you see a little bit of the fire.
She looked at that ballot and said, Bliat, I don't see my choice on here. I choose violence, and threw a Molotov in the polling booth.
Dude, this voter right here sat there and said, "Will my vote actually count?" And the voting official said, "Why, yes, of course it will count." And she said, "Liar, liar, pants on fire." And like the polling booth just turned into a roaring inferno. But beyond that, this was one of the first instances that we saw today of someone doing something pretty wild at one of the polling booths. And also, this is not an oddity. This is actually quite normal from what we can see today. There was also apparently a large explosion that occurred within another Moscow polling station, and we got to hear a little bit of it here at the beginning. And we also saw a pretty large inferno engulf the entire polling station and smoke billowing out of its entrance, which we can see in this clip right here.
Now, I will say on this one, this was allegedly a bomb that went off. I wasn't able to confirm that earlier, but the reports were claiming, or at least the people on the ground were claiming, that some kind of explosion happened, and then this fire started behind it. So this could have been an actual, it won't really call it a terrorist attempt because they're blowing up the polls that are illegitimate in the first place, but it was an attack of some sort from what I could tell.
From what we can tell, it was some kind of an attack. We don't know from who. I mean, there's so many people that would not believe in a Russian election that it's really hard to iron down a single group. It could have been the Free Russian Army. It could have been the Ukrainians. It could have been the Ingushian Liberation Army. It could have been the Chechens that are still not happy with the Russian government. It could have been Siberians. It could have been Russians that are unhappy with the Russian government. It could have been really anyone. I mean, like, the list is endless. I hope that you'll get an idea from me just trying to list off a few people off the top of my head that could be suspect for this kind of attack. There's an endless amount of people, both outside of Russia and inside Russia, that would probably blow up a polling station. So we really have no idea who did this, but nevertheless, it is showing that there is a lot of incidents happening at the polling station. But one of the most interesting ones happened in a Moscow polling station where a citizen went in and made a statement that he was going to vote for anyone but Putin. He said that. He said, "I'm going to vote for anyone on the ballot but Putin." And so this is actually the end result of what happened after he made that statement. Some kind of armed police, like the OMON or the FSB, came in, slammed the guy to the floor, cuffed him, and ran him out. Because apparently in Russia, the elections are fair and honest as long as you honestly and fairly vote for Putin and Putin only. If you don't vote for him, there's a high chance that you're going to be going to prison. So here's the clip.
Sounds like he's getting a little bit roughed up.
Yeah, it does. Also, huge credit to the FSB soldier who left his Makarov just sitting on the floor the entire time where anyone could have run up and grabbed it in the middle of that. Very nice, very respectable. And now he just noticed that and he's putting it back in his pants. Or more so just trying to hold it behind his back.
This is one, like, janky, like, poll booth setup they have here. Like, I know that, like, they're not going to be, like, decked out wherever they set up a polling booth, but these are literally just, like, clear acrylic boxes they put with, like, a 1, 2, and a 3, like a printed Word document on the front of it. And it's really, like, not really a proper setup to begin with either.
Yeah, also, do you notice, Matthew, that the actual boxes, the ballot boxes, are transparent? Why is that? You know,
yeah.
Like, that's a rhetorical question. We know why they're clear, but that is a very bizarre thing for a democracy to have it to where you can pretty much see exactly who voted for who. Here in America, your vote is usually anonymous. You really don't have to show anyone or tell anyone who you voted for, and you drop it off in a ballot box, but the ballot box is just completely non-transparent. It's not made of glass or some kind of plexiglass. You put it in there and no one can see who you voted for, and then it's sent off to a vote counting station where they then count the votes and figure out what's what. Rarely ever, like in fact never do you see this in a Western country, and this is absolutely bizarre to see how Russian voting works. Also, I like the little voting booths that they have over here, which are literally just cloth partitions set up. Here in America, back when I voted, because, you know, while I'm not a political person here on stream, I have voted before in prior elections, there was always just open tables. Like, you just went to open tables and you voted there. You didn't have these partitions, and it seems so weird because they don't want people to see you fill out the ballot, but then when you drop off the ballot in the ballot box, then it's fine to see it. It really makes no sense. But beyond that,
That's really dumb. And also, like AF Kaplan said in the live chat, those clear, transparent ballot boxes are about as close as Russia will ever get to having election transparency, if you want to call it that. That is Russian transparency right there. That's the extent of it.
that really is. It's pitiful. It's really a very pitiful thing. But things got more and more pitiful as the day kept going and we moved a little bit farther out of Moscow and up towards St. Petersburg, where we got to see that someone was quite unhappy with the whole deal of people voting in the election and believes that the Russian government is illegitimate. So they decided to throw a Molotov at the polling booth. But it doesn't really look like it was that successful, so there they go. They threw it, and then it landed on the ground, and it didn't break. So this is already off to a bad start. So they attempt to throw it again, and this time it breaks, but it just falls back onto the ground and then sets on fire on the sidewalk. And then they go running off, and then some people go chasing them. And this little kid's clapping. He thinks this is quite a performance. And the babushka is just sitting around absolutely confused as to what happened. So
when I first watched this video, I thought that Grandmama was slinging Molotovs. When I first watched it, I didn't see the other woman throw it. But yeah, she was just like a bystander, I guess.
Dude, I'm just saying, if it didn't, like, okay, here's the thing. I feel like it would be a little bit common sense that a glass Molotov is probably not going to break through a glass window and go into the polling booth. If you were trying to actually cause damage, I feel like it would have just been smarter to just run up to the door, open it, and then fling it in instead of trying to throw it through the window. This is not exactly a brick or anything. You know, that just made no sense to me. But, you know, one try, they failed. Second try, they failed to catch the fire. They tried to salvage the Molotov. You can actually see them run towards it and be like, wait a minute, let me salvage it. And then after they saw that they couldn't do that, they went running off. Like, they just started trying to book it. It looks like they didn't make it that far.
Man, and what was this person like pulling up their dress for that's running over there to like get the fire extinguisher? They were like pulling up their pants like, oh dearie, I can't touch the water. Watch the person in the yellow vest. Look at him.
Dude, why in the world do you run like a Family Guy character? Look at him. Giggity, giggity.
It's like Comedy Central out here.
Goodness. And then the little kid's clapping at the end. The little kid's the only person here that actually realizes how stupid all that was and went, but anyways, that's the end of the clip. It's just showing a little bit of what's going on. There was a lot of other different kinds of election occurrences, I guess you could call them, that happened. Like, for example, this ballot stuffing. I cut out a lot of the ones of, like, firebombing and stuff because there was, like, 90 of them, and I didn't want to show you all of them because we still have so much more news to cover, especially down in Belgorod and Kursk, where the Free Russian Army is steamrolling the Russian border guards and continuing to rapidly advance. But down here in this area, we got to see that in the Nizhny Novgorod region, the Russian government is quite transparent with how the election is run. And they openly show you them stuffing the ballots in the front window of the polling station after voting has been completed. So let me show you all this. It's actually just wild to see this. There they are. These are the Russian voting officials, the election officials at this polling station. And there they are, just taking ballots and shoving them into the ballot box. One after the other, after the other. An endless stream of ballots, all for Putin. Because one thing we know is that Russian elections are as fair and transparent as they can get. They will openly show you all cheating, they'll openly show the Russian government cheating the election and just writing in whoever the hell they want. When the Russians were done with this, they said the ballots are stuffed, but we're not. And that is something that is a very true statement for many Russians throughout the country. But hey, at least the groceries are cheap. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get cheaper groceries than that. But speaking of which, one thing that was also a very transparent thing about Russian elections, Matthew, and I know you covered this one a good bit today, but this was probably one of the more interesting ones. The most transparent thing about the Russian elections that happened today was the ink that you use to sign or fill out the ballots. Apparently, from what we've been able to find out there in the world, according to some Russian voters in the Kursk and Rostov-on-Don oblasts, they found out that the official pens that they're given to fill out their ballots are filled with magic ink that apparently becomes transparent later on, so that way the voting officials can fill in whatever they need and then put those in the ballots.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nifty, actually. The ink, you write it on there just like a normal pen, but the Russian election officials can pull out a normal, like, cigarette lighter and put the flame right up to it, and it erases the ink completely, like, in under a second. It's crazy.
It's legit nuts. It's legit nuts to think that they come up with creative ways like that to give the feeling to the public in Russia that the elections are a real deal, and then to just completely reverse the results and put in whoever they want. Putin will win by a landslide. That is one thing I'm fairly certain of. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bet that the amount that he wins by this time is going to be greater than 90%. I would actually say a realistic number would probably be 92%, somewhere around that area. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It won't really matter that much, but for some reason, I've had a feeling all day that when the final numbers come out, Putin will have won the Russian election by 92%. It's going to be an absolute landslide, and the Russian government is going to explain it away as the war in Ukraine and also the Wicked West made the Russians believe in Putin more because he's just done so well during the entirety of the war. I will put money, I would literally bet that that is exactly what they're going to try and say, and exactly what they're going to try and sell to the public to make them believe that this election was a real deal and that this guy got 92% of the vote. But let me know in the chat, what percentage do y'all think he's going to win? Because I'm actually seeing a lot of people saying different numbers. 96.5, 97, 82%, 92%. Who knows? I mean, really, honestly, who has any idea? But it will be very high. That's one thing that I'm very certain about. But moving on from that news and down into the Kursk and Belgorod border regions, there has been a lot of news coming out today of the Russian Free Army and, well, the Free Russian Army and their advances into Belgorod. They have been making it considerably farther. And while we're not getting exact updates from the Free Russian Army of where they are and what they are doing, due to operational security issues, largely impeding our efforts to even figure that out as well, we did some extrapolations off of logic and some statistics and found out a pretty good framework of where they probably are or how much they've advanced, although we're not really being publicly told that all too much. Moving on to the area of Rossosh, though, we got to see something really interesting as a small amount of air defense that the Russians have mobilized in this area were attempting to shoot down some incoming Ukrainian or Free Russian Army drones, which we can see the anti-aircraft fire right here in the clip. Oh, and we can see a little explosion over there. Hey, look at that. But with that, that's the end of that small clip right there. But once again, showing the Russians are under drone attack. But moving on over here into the Belgorod area, many people may notice that I've started to combine these fronts over here, the Grivoron and the Gorkovsky front, into a singular front. And also, I have made the Shabakino front far larger, or the Novaya Tabozhanka front, far larger than it ever was over the past 2 days. And I'm going to go into a very in-depth explanation as to why that's the case and why we believe that they've made it all the way up to Maslova Preston about 24 hours ago. Moving on into the footage that we got from Belgorod today, this kind of gives us the reason why we're believing that the Free Russian Army has advanced so rapidly. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, they have stated that the Free Russian Army is firing into Belgorod with RM-70 multiple rocket launchers. It's pretty similar to a Grad, and I'll actually pull up one right here as we play this very short video. But here we go. There's one of the MLRS rockets impacting out on the street as this Russian citizen films, and it does prove that there is some kind of an MLRS system being fired at the city. Regardless whether it's an RM70 or a BM21 grad, what's most important is the kind of information that we can extrapolate out of this assumption. Whatever it is a grad-style MLRS, and with a grad-style MLRS, there is only a limited kind of a range that these things can have. The RM70 is a pretty cool-looking MLRS, but in reality, this thing literally is just a BM21 grad on a different chassis. The most important thing with an MLRS is this rocket launching system that's mounted onto the back right here. The actual vehicle that's being carried on doesn't really matter all too much, so whether it's an RM70 or a BM21 doesn't really make much of a difference. In reality, it's probably a BM21 grad, because that would be a Ukrainian vintage artillery piece, and that probably would have been what the Free Russian Army is equipped with. However, there's something very clear and very informative that we can get out of this statement and this information today. These MLRSs actually have a fairly limited range. The farthest that an RM70 or a BM21 grad can fire is about 20.75 kilometers, or at its farthest, 12 miles. That's with the best kind of munitions that can be provided. And that is just to hit the outskirts of Belgorod. Now I'm going to show y'all why I believe that the Free Russian Army has made it to Maslova Preston at least 24 hours ago, is because when we take a ruler and we just say that the Free Russian Army was firing into the outskirts of Belgorod, which are all the way down here, and let's just measure that to Maslova Preston, that means that this MLRS could be right at the back of Maslova Preston and be able to fire into the city of Belgorod, or a little bit deeper into it, because it wasn't firing right there onto the very outskirts, it was more so firing a little bit into the center, maybe even over here. And going off of that, that means that this MLRS would already be reaching its maximum range just to fire into Belgorod at all. And that's at its farthest launch range. So going off of that, we have a fairly good idea that the Free Russian Army has had to have advanced a far greater distance than we originally believed, and are getting very close to Belgorod at this point, and are really reaching or meeting no resistance or any heavy kind of resistance from the Russian border guards. We also understand.
Oh man, I can tell you. Earlier today, I saw a video of the Free Russian Legion. They were going up a road toward Belgorod, meeting no resistance whatsoever. It was a convoy of tanks and their vehicles, and they were just driving straight up the road like a normal day, like in the summer or something. There was no gunfire going on, absolutely nothing. It was unbelievable. The Russians aren't prepared to hold them off.
Oh, and we have a lot of clips of that, and I'll be showing those here in a second. That also proves the rapid advance that we're talking about. But the most important thing to get out of this information-wise is the range of the Free Russian Army's rocket launch systems, and how far away that front line has to be from Belgorod for those things to be used. We also know that these MLRSs are not firing from the very most forward point that the Free Russian Army has made it to, so we know that the area right behind Maslova Preston is probably a fairly accurate location for these MLRSs to be firing from, and showing that they are getting very close to Belgorod. At this point, the Free Russian Army is probably approximately 6 miles away from the very outskirts of Belgorod, and that is wildly close. They are actually almost halfway to Belgorod at this point on the Novaya Tavlzhanka front, from what we can extrapolate based off of all of the information. But moving on into this front, we got a couple of interesting clips showing the Free Russian Army on the move, and also doing a couple of other things as well. Here's the first clip of them just driving through the countryside, not engaging any Russian forces, and just moving forward unimpeded.
Черный, блядь, работай! Работаю! Давай! Давай, ебать! Нахуй!
And it appears that they have a BTR right here, a BTR-80 that's firing its 30mm gun.
Левее возьми! Возьми левее! Вот туда, нахуй!
And that's the end of that clip, but once again showing that they're rapidly advancing, and not only that, levying a decent amount of firepower to deal with the limited amounts of Russian border guards they're facing. Moving on from that, we also got to see some ongoing fighting happening in this area in this clip. We don't really know when this came out, but this is showing the armored forces. We believe that it was at least within the past 24 hours, but we don't know when within that time frame to kind of put this into a bigger picture. But we did get to see Free Russian Army armored units firing at Russian forces, or Russian border guard forces, that were trying to hold up inside of these houses within this small village. There's one of the Free Russian Army tanks right there. And we see it continuing to fire at the Russian forces, the Russian border guards, further down the street. Moving on from that little clip, we also got to see one final clip in the area of Novaya Tavashanka of the Free Russian Army's artillery in operation. This appears to be a 120mm heavy mortar that is towed by a vehicle, as we can see its wheel mounts right there on screen, and we can see them firing this in support of the infantry of the Free Russian Army, probably about a mile or two in front of them.
Отправляем бюллетень на голосование. Надеюсь, попадет прямо на стол к Владимиру Владимировичу. Было бы очень неплохо, потому что наша мина выбирает его.
And we're going to mute it right there because the copyright music comes in. But we can see them continuing to fire the 120mm mortar. And once again, showing that they are that they have a decent amount of artillery support and apparently ammunition to work off of as well.
This guy's having a grand old time just filming the whole thing.
Yeah, he's just out here like a vlogger. He's like, so basically we're firing the artillery today. But moving on from that little clip, we're getting a very good idea that the Free Russian Army is not really running into any resistance. And so far, over about a 72-hour battle, or more so a campaign, they've been able to advance roughly 12 miles in a straight line towards Belgorod, with only about 6 miles left before they actually reach the outskirts of Belgorod, meaning that they are actually about to be within actual fighting distance of the city of Belgorod here very soon. Meanwhile, as the Free Russian Army continues to rapidly advance in the city and their artillery continues to support the troops, we are seeing that the city of Belgorod is coming under a decent amount of artillery fire and is also beginning to suffer some damage. Hopefully, Russian citizens will be evacuating the city en masse, but here is a perspective of a Russian citizen filming the attacks from inside the city of Belgorod.
Короче, вот такие пироги. Спал.
When you see the glass has already been busted by the explosion outside. See some smoldering flames caused by an MLRS impact right outside. With the clip ending right there, we don't really get a lot more of a view of this attack. But moving on throughout the rest of the city, we can see other attacks that did occur. We can see this one in particular, which was quite interesting, because I could not tell with this truck whether it got hit by an MLRS or whether there was a bomb inside of the truck. But here's the clip. And what do y'all think? Do y'all think that that was a bomb inside of the truck, like a truck-based bomb? Or do y'all think that that was some kind of an MLRS rocket that hit this truck and caused it to explode? Because I'm really kind of split between the two. I didn't really see anything that was a clear sign of a rocket impact. It looks more so like the explosion actually happened here at the bed of the truck, at the back, if you see right there. But I can't really tell for certain.
It might have been an explosive, like, stuck underneath the actual, like, box of the truck or something. It looked like it came from underneath it, like you said.
Yeah, it kind of does. What do y'all think of the chat? Do y'all think that this was a truck bomb? You know, whether it be under the truck, inside the truck, or wherever? Or do you think that that was one of the grad rockets that have been fired into the city, hitting this truck and causing it to explode? Let us know in the comments, because let us know in the live chat, because I'm really interested in what y'all are thinking about that. But moving on from that and into one of our next clips, we also got to hear once again the air raid sirens going off over the city as the explosion still rang out throughout the course of the entire day. Also, this clip was funny because apparently the wife of this Russian citizen does not consider this to be too serious of a instance, so it was a pretty funny ending. But here's the clip. She got it.
Oh man. Yeah, that's crazy to do that in the middle of a war zone.
That is actually wild. Watch. Dude, the cameraman jumped so bad you can even see it on the camera. But with that, that's the end of that clip. And moving on from that and into our next one, we can also see another explosion happening very close to the outskirts of the city. And here's the clip. We hear the explosions out there of the Free Russian artillery. clip repeats itself. But once again, the sounds of heavy artillery bombardment can be heard on the very outskirts of Belgorod, and that sounds, you know, my ears are not well trained to the sound of artillery, but we have heard it for over 2 years. It sounds as though that may be less than a mile or two away from the cameraman here, showing that Russian border guard forces that are just right outside of Belgorod are now under direct bombardment by the Free Russian Army, possibly with the Grad batteries or some other kind of artillery system that they have in their possession. Beyond that, the city of Belgorod is practically under siege at this point, with the artillery already in range of Belgorod and Free Russian Army forces closing in, certainly from the Shebekino and Novaya Tavashanka direction, and possibly from other axes of advance as well, although we haven't really been able to get clear enough information to be able to show or prove those advances in other areas. However, we did get to see that there was an electronic warfare system hit today way in front of the Free Russian Army's advance by the Free Russians to try and knock out the Russians' eyes and ears in the area, so that way they can't get as good an idea of what the Free Russian Army is doing and where they're heading. Well, you can see the massive array of antennas that the Russians had set up on this building right up there, and we're about to see them get blown away. There's a Muron M right there as well, inside of the building. And we can see the drone on its way. Very funky looking camera, but it still is going to prove wildly effective as they hit the Muron M and obliterate it right out of the window. And now it looks like they're going for the massive antenna relays that are on top of the roof as well. Hitting that with a drone, and hopefully knocking out the entire system. Although it's literally across the entire roof, so that might be a little bit more difficult to pull off. But with that into the clip, we are seeing that the Free Russian Army is apparently trying to gather as much intel on the Russians' reconnaissance abilities in the area and knock those out as well. With Russian reconnaissance being knocked out, like we're seeing in that clip, it's giving us another fair indicator that the Free Russian Army has a grand battle plan or a grand strategy for fighting this conflict, which also revolves heavily around knocking out the Russians' ability to actually get an idea of how big the Free Russian Army is and where they are going at that exact moment. Reconnaissance is the way that every military in the world figures out what they're going up against and what the enemy's actions are. And for the Russians, their enemy is the Free Russian Army. And the way that they try and gather any intelligence or information on their enemy is by these electronic warfare and also reconnaissance systems like the Muron M. Knocking those out allows the Free Russian Army to make sure that the Russians are completely blind to the real situation going on and allows them a lot more wiggle room where the Russians are trying to allocate their forces and equipment appropriately to try and deal with the largest threat in the area. A very smart move by the Free Russian Army, and once again showing that they are very well trained and have a very good battle plan in the works right now as they continue to fight in this oblast. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we once again got to see more of the Free Russian Army moving forward again today, this time inside the back of some kind of an armored vehicle. We can see them showing their column behind them, continuing to advance once again unimpeded, and the video clip abruptly ends right there, but still showing us that the Free Russian Army is advancing in large columns, probably without even the fear of air attacks from the Russian Air Force, because they're not really even spaced out, and we're not really seeing a lot of attempts to bomb the Free Russian Army by the Russian Air Force. Moving on from that and into our next clip, near to the area of Maslovo, or Maschevo, we got to see that there was also a very interesting situation apparently unfolding in the Grivoronsky area of the Belgorod Oblast. This is according to a Russian in the area, and speaking about the situation that is going on near to the Grivoron area, or the Grivoronsky front. There is no electricity in part of the Grivoronsky district. A man was also injured in the village of Zarechi-1. He has a shrapnel wound to his right thigh and a concussion of the brain. Doctors assess his condition as moderate. As a result of shelling today, various destructions have been recorded in the district in 43 households, 2 social facilities on the territory of a market, and 2 economic entities. A visit to the garage of a healthcare facility was also recorded. 2 service vehicles were damaged, windows in the garage buildings were broken, and the facade was damaged. Power lines in the area have been damaged as well. There is no light in Grivoron, Bezmino, Goropodol, Zamosk, Dobronovka, Poplar, Kuzinka, Lugova, Novostroyevka 1, Novostroyevka 2, Glotovo, and Zarichi 1. Emergency crews will begin eliminating the consequences as soon as possible. I don't know why the Russians talk like it's some kind of like a cryptic message time, but nevertheless, they said subscribe to Belgorod #1. I don't think Belgorod #1 is going to be around for that much longer with the pace in which the Russian Free Army is advancing, because they are moving rapidly. I don't think these guys will be around much longer to talk about this. But beyond that, they gave pretty much a geolocation of everywhere where the power lines have been damaged. One of them is Gryvron, which we know clearly came under Free Russian Army control not that long ago, about a day ago, 24 hours, 36 hours ago. So going off of that, we may be able to get a good idea that all of these towns that have no power may be under Free Russian Army control, or may be very close to an area where the Free Russian Army is currently fighting at the moment. So, you know what? Let's go look at Gorod, and let's see where that is. And maybe that'll give us an idea of where the Free Russian Army may be. This is actually behind Gryvron, so that doesn't really tell us much. What about Zamosk? So let's go type in Zamosk right here. And that's apparently in Poland, so we're assuming that that's not accurate, or I spelled that wrong, and I did not.
That is the mosque, probably, not the mosque.
The mosque. But then we got Debroy. So let's type in Debroy. And I'm not seeing that either. These towns must be obscure as hell, because I'm not seeing them show up anywhere when I'm trying to type them in. So unfortunately, we won't really be able to get a really good idea of where the power's knocked out and where the Free Russian Army may be. We know that they are in Gryvron and Gorod, and also Kozinka and Glotovo. But beyond that, we're not really getting any other good idea of where the Free Russian Army may be in this area. We haven't heard anything about the nuclear facility or the nuclear weapons facility being overrun and taken over yet. But once again, that may be kept a little hush-hush by both sides. So unfortunately, I won't really be able to get you all that much news in that direction, or more so in that area for the moment. But moving on out of that little update from the Russians themselves, talking about the situation in this area, we once again got to see that the Free Russian Army was just pressing onwards, unopposed in the area. This is another clip of a little convoy here. We can actually see that it's headed by a tank, and then it has several different kinds of armored cars and armored personnel carriers following the tank, completely unimpeded again, moving at full speed without any fear of running into Russian border guard forces, proving that there's really no resistance to the Free Russian Army right now as these clips are being filmed. We also got to see, outside of that, and up in the area around Kursk, there were more explosions happening in the city of Kursk, showing that the Free Russian Army inside of the Kursk Oblast is also active as well, and attempting to target and destroy Russian armed forces that may be in Kursk and the Russian border guards that are there as well. And here's the clip of that. Hello, darling, it's time for me to smoke a ciggy. Oh, bleh!
Man, that's that Russian bravery, man.
Man, he sat there and said, I'm a man, I smoke cigarettes because I'm so brave. I'm a very brave man. And then he jumped and he ran before the explosion even ended, man. It went, and he was already running in. But that's the end of that clip, once again showing that the Free Russian Army is targeting Russian forces inside of the city of Kursk as well. And once again proving to us that the Russians are pretty much under attack. They're literally being invaded. There's no other way for me to put that out there. It is a full-scale invasion that's happening in Belgorod and Kursk, and it looks like the Russians have no plans of actually stopping them for now. No Russian armed forces are in the area beyond the border guards. The border guards are lightly equipped. We do know that the border guards have some kind of artillery, but it's not really much of it. And out of all the videos I've seen, because I will admit to you all, I have seen video clips of the Russians, according to their own information and their own clips, attacking the Free Russians and inflicting some casualties, but the amount of artillery fire that's currently being sent towards the Free Russian Army is very small in number and is producing minimal casualties compared to the amount of gains that the Free Russian Army is getting at the moment. So going off of that, we have an idea that the border guards are the only people that are fighting the Free Russian Army at this moment, and they're completely, wholly undertrained, wholly underequipped, and a completely wrong doctrinal structure to really cause any kind of damage or slow the Free Russian Army advance by any meaningful amount. So from what we understand, the Free Russian Army is going to continue to advance until something drastic changes, such as the introduction of the Rosguardia or the Russian Army into the area. honestly, we don't even think the Rosguardia is really going to be stopping these people either. We think that they're actually going to continue to advance, even coming up against Rosguardia forces, unless of the proper regular Russian army is moved into the area to try and deal with the situation. So for now, the situation for the Free Russian Army is very positive, and we are assuming that they will probably reach the outskirts of Belgorod by tomorrow or the next 48 hours at this going speed. But moving on out of that little bit of news, and I say a little bit of news very sarcastically there, because the Russians getting obliterated inside their own country isn't exactly small fry news. That's actually a pretty big deal, and it looks like the Russian government is trying to play it low-key, but they're quietly freaking out up at the top circles of the government. But a lot of people are talking about everything that's happening at the same time. The Free Russian Army invading Belgorod and Kursk, and not only that, all of the election unrest that happened today, people attacking the election booths, bombings occurring, and not only that, the Russian FSB arresting people who are not voting the right way. There's a lot that has really been going on in that regard, and a lot of people have been wondering if the Russians were really expecting this level of unrest, or if this is even a shock to the Russian government itself. And a lot of y'all have been talking about this, a load of y'all have. And Matthew, what is everyone thinking, and what are you thinking, most importantly, about all of this unrest inside of Russia?
All right, so we asked the audience about their thoughts of Russian citizens destroying several polling centers, and also the Russian government deploying the FSB to begin arresting people and also roughing people up that dare not to vote for Putin. It looks like 57% said Russia was not expecting this unrest at all, and that 23% said it was expected and it is under control. And I would say that it was partially expected, because the FSB was already on these polling centers. They were waiting for people to come in, so that way they could try to intimidate them. And sometimes the FSB decided to pull some people off to the side and arrest them if they did not vote the way they wanted them to vote. And then sometimes they allowed them to walk out, and then they would simply burn the check mark off of the ballot itself, and then re-stuff it back into the box, so that way they could try to cast that vote for Putin. So to me, it was a bit of half and half. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I don't really think the Russians were expecting this level of unrest, especially the attacks against the polling booths, and at the same time, Russia being invaded. I don't think they were expecting this kind of unrest. So, to be honest, I'd have to agree with the majority of everyone who weighed in on that. I would have to say I don't think the Russians were ready for that one bit at all. So I think they've been completely blindsided by all this, and they're like, dang, the elections aren't popular this year. I wonder why. But moving on from that, there's another question that we asked. And Matthew, this one was actually quite an interesting one.
It was. We asked you all about your thoughts about Ukraine destroying that fourth major oil refinery, which brought the total up to obviously 4 oil refineries destroyed across Russia in just 3 to 4 days. It looks like 55% said Russian oil will simply be reduced and not become obsolete, and 34% said Russian oil will become obsolete in the future. And I can't say that we're going to see the end of Russian oil. That is not a thing that we can really say at the moment. But we are going to see a drastic reduction in domestic production of oil inside of Russia, because we've seen a Lukoil plant, a Rosneft plant, and now this one right here get exploded. And that is about 15 to 16%, if not a little bit more, of Russia's total oil refining capacity. So they're going to begin having problems with that, because they rely on selling oil plus using it themselves. And that's going to start causing some economic issues. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, it's going to start causing some economic... Whoa! It's just going to start causing...
Whoa, Jack!
Whoa, Jack! Whoa! But beyond that, to answer that, in my opinion, I'd have to say that this is going to start having some serious effects on the Russian economy. This is literally their life's blood. Like, let me go pull up the Russian economy. And let me go show y'all a little bit about the Russian economy, because once you see how lopsided the Russian economy is and how it's structured and what really makes Russia its money, you can't really unsee how serious of a thing this is for the Russians, for that matter. So let me see here. Let's see here. Trying to get the little chart here. It looks like they actually removed the chart. How dare they? That is absurd. Let's see here. Russian exports. Let's go do that, because exports is where a country usually makes a large amount of its money. So let me see if I can get you all the list of exports of Russia. And here we go. So we were able to find it in millions of dollars. So this is how much money is made at each category. So sadly, I wasn't able to find the really nice looking, pretty graph, but this puts it out there pretty well. Crude petroleum is number 1. Refined petroleum is number 2. Those are the 2 biggest exports that the Russians have, and it beats everything else out by massive margins. Like, look at that. Like, crude petroleum is about, let's see here, $121 billion of the Russian economy. That is quite a large number. And refined petroleum makes up around $67 billion of the Russian economy. Then everything else makes up.
Where's the lies and propaganda? That should be number 1.
Yeah, the propaganda that they export is usually one of the most expensive, but beyond that, or one of the most valuable. But beyond that, you can see that a large amount of their economy in exports is made up of petroleum products, crude petroleum or refined petroleum. And refined petroleum makes up a smaller amount of their export market because a lot of what they produce is actually consumed inside of Russia, and then some of it is imported from abroad. Because oil economics are a little bit odd. Some people are always going, why in the world do countries import oil from overseas if they can produce enough oil to run themselves and then ship it out to others? And there's kind of it's a really in-depth answer as to why that's ever the case and why that happens, but it does, and the Russians do import a little bit. But beyond that, this is something that is very interesting to look at, because when you see how important these kinds of oil refineries are to the Russian economy and also to the Russian state as a whole, especially on a strategic level, you start to see that these explosions like we see in this clip right here, which I'll play again just to show everyone the severity of the damage. That kind of explosion right there is a death knell to the Russian economy. This refinery is going to be shut down for quite a while. If it is ever brought back online, it's going to be at a reduced capacity because they're not going to be able to use certain parts of the plant, like this area that was blown apart, to be able to try and produce more oil or more refined petroleum products. So going off of that, this is serious.
This is actually one of the smarter things I've seen Ukraine do when it comes to attacking inside of Russia, because the West has put sanctions on Russia for some time, for years now, but the sanctions have always been bypassed in some ways. And Ukraine has basically become fed up with it, and they're actually going to go to the source and just destroy the oil refineries themselves. So that way, they don't even have the opportunity to ship oil out to other countries at this point. So Ukraine's taking matters into their own hands, and it's a good time to do so as well, I must say.
And let's see here, Russian oil consumption. Let's do some number crunching. We know we're not good at math. I will say that outright. But the Russians consume about 3.6 million barrels of oil per day in 2022. And that is probably a little bit of a skewed statistic because 2022 was a year of slightly less economic activity due to the plague, and there wasn't as much transport going on. But we'll go with 3.6 million barrels just to make this a little easier. Or actually, we'll go to Statista and we'll see. No, we're not clicking that. So actually, in 2022, it was one of the highest it had ever been. So going off of that, we'll use that as our rough number. Now let's see how much oil does Russia produce per day. So let's see here. The Russians produce 11 million barrels of oil per day. They have a surplus of around 7.6 million barrels, but that does not answer us the question of how much oil products can the Russians produce per day, because producing a barrel of oil and producing a usable barrel of oil are 2 completely different things. And there's a bottleneck there, because yes, you can drill all the oil out of the ground if you want, that you could ever wish for, but if you have no way to refine it into a usable fuel, then it's completely useless, because cars don't run off of bunker C oil. They run off of gasoline and diesel and stuff like that.
Maybe Ladas do at this point. They're so poorly built, they might run off of crude.
Dude, imagine if they ran off of bunker C oil. Dude, people would walk outside of their commie blocks and drop dead from the fumes. Like, they would just be dead on the spot. But let's see here. How much, let's see if we can, how much refined oil does Russia produce per day? I'd be dipped. No one really has a good number on that. Everyone's saying, they produce, they pump out this many barrels of oil daily, but they're not telling us how much they are able to produce in refined oil products daily. Could anyone find us a number on that? Because whoever could find us a number on the refined amount of oil that the Russians are able to produce would be an absolute hero of the state, and we would honor y'all by giving y'all some kind of a thank you. But beyond that, Sadly, we have no idea if the Russians will be able to keep this up because the daily consumption in Russia on the civilian level is 3.6 million barrels. Who knows how much the military is also consuming as well at this point, keeping everything that they're doing running. And then on top of that, who knows how much refined oil products the Russians are able to produce per day, how much of that they're exporting, how much of that they're keeping inside of their country, and how much is inside of their strategic reserves. Nevertheless, I have a feeling that this probably does have a massive impact on them. And I just remember this. We had a map on the stream at some point that showed every single refinery in Russia and the amount of refined oil products in barrels that they were able to produce per day. If we could find
Let's see. I think I might have that map on Twitter because I tweeted something like that out yesterday. Let me go through here real quick and see if I can spot it. It'll take me 2 more seconds here. Let's see. I have a map of where they're located if you want that.
Yes, that might be good. That
So
might
go
be
to our
good.
likes tab on our Twitter profile and it'll be at the top.
Let's see here. Let's go. And by the way, y'all, if y'all want, you can follow us on Twitter. Link in the description below.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
But let's see here. The likes. And let's see here. Up at the top with the likes.
Yeah, refresh the page.
I'm not seeing it.
Let's see here. Let me pin it to the top then. Give me 2 seconds.
All right, we're giving him 2 seconds. His 2 seconds is up. Let's see if it's there. So,
Let's see.
Dagnabbit.
There, I reposted it. It should be at the top now. Refresh the page and see if it's there.
All right, so let's see if we got it.
And go to the post page. You're on the like still.
Okay, all right. Let's check it out here. Okay, so here we go. This sadly still doesn't really give us that good of an idea. But it's so unfortunate, y'all, because if we had that number, at least if we had the number of how many barrels of oil was being refined in these refineries per day, we at least have kind of an okay idea of how bad off the Russians are. At the moment, sadly, we don't really have a good perspective, but I'd assume they are probably very badly off. A lot of that oil that they drill out of the ground is shipped outside of Russia pretty much immediately in its crude form and never refined. The Russians have a very small need to refine their petroleum products, mostly for domestic reasons and also for international reasons in very rare instances. And I see someone saying, Joe Blog. Let me go check that out. Let me go over here and search that up. Let's see here. Let's look around. Maybe this person. No, not them. So sadly, I'm gonna have to give up on that goose chase because I don't want to keep everyone here waiting forever for us to try and find an answer on that. But from what we can tell, the Russians are probably going to be in a pretty bad fix, especially if a lot of these oil refineries continue to go down. I would assume that they probably are not able to produce enough refined barrels of oil per day to keep the armed forces and the civilians running, and so they're probably going to start running out of refined oil here in the near future. And so then,
so I asked the CIA in the manual that we were given. They say 3.7 million barrels of refined crude per day comes out of Russia. Produced by Russia.
So that means that with 12, okay, so if it's 3.7, now let's do some math here, and let me whip out a calculator so it's right. So 3.7 million times 0.12, 444,000 barrels of refined oil products has been wiped out of Russia's oil producing infrastructure as of right now. So when we take that out of 3.7, so 3.7 million minus 444,000, that means that the Russians are at a deficit at the moment of approximately 350,000 barrels per day that they're not able to produce that the country is consuming. That's once again not including the fuel usage of the Russian armed forces, which is, going all out at the moment right now inside of Ukraine and also down in the Black Sea. So going out of that, I hope that does address that the best I can, because from what we can tell now, it's actually having a massive impact. They are starting to largely just degrade the ability of the Russians to try and wage war because they're running out of fuel to even fight a war with. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least from what we can find, and we are on to the next one.
And we were actually done with our polls.
Oh, for real? Well, let's get some questions.
For real?
Let's get some questions.
All right, so our first question of the night is going to go to Hokey Redneck, the longtime channel legend who throws in a very generous $100 donation. And thank you very much, Hokey, as always, for that massive and very generous support. We do appreciate it. It says, for chat, can you make a video, compare a BMP 30 mic or Bushmaster to the Warthog and Bert?
And yes, we can actually. We could try. We could try to video compare them. Let me see if I can find a BMP 30 millimeter gun. There we go. There it is. The 2A42 autocannon is what I'm assuming you're talking about. Yes. I try and sound so sophisticated because I know the name of the gun. But the 2A42 30 millimeter autocannon. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I found it, and let's see if I can get the clip here. So I'm going to be muting this because it's got Chad music in it. And we know how we feel about Chad music. Let's see. Maybe this one's better. Yeah, this one's better. This is short. We actually showed it here on this channel before. And then let me go get the 25 millimeter Bushmaster. And let me go get the video of that. So, oh, look at that. So this is actually ship mounted. So this will be fairly good. And then finally, we will pull up the A10. All right. So I think we have them all together in one place, in one piece. So this is the first one. This is the 2A42, the 30 millimeter. This is the 25 millimeter Bushmaster, and this is the A10 Warthog. So here's the fastest rate of fire that you can get from a BMP2. Right out there. Sadly, no audio for some reason. But beyond that, you can see it's firing fairly quickly. The Bushmaster is actually a little bit slower, but here's it. That's
that boy is slow.
Man, that thing is very slow because the BMP2 is like going, it's like, dang. And then here's the A10 Warthog with the fastest fire rate. And it should be coming right here. And that's, of course, pretty fast. I think the fire rate of the A10 Warthog is somewhere around 1,200 rounds a minute. The Bushmaster is somewhere in the 300s to 400s. And the BMP can get all the way up to, I think, 600 to 800 rounds a minute. So it's almost like a Vickers machine gun with the rate of fire it has.
Wait, can we hear the... Oh, man. You jumped off of it. I want to hear it one more time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I hope I was able to address that fairly well, Hokey Redneck. I hope I was. Because really, out of all of them, the A10 Warthog's gun is going to beat both of the APC's guns, the BMP and the Bradley. But out of the two guns for the APCs, if we're talking about just rate of fire alone, the BMP2 would win. The 2A42 autocannon is capable of a much higher rate of fire than the 25mm Bushmaster is. But I've never seen a BMP2 take out an Abrams. I have seen a Bradley take out a T90M, though. So I feel like the Bushmaster wins in the end. But that's just because I'm biased and because I love America. America is a beautiful country. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Hokey Redneck, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope I was able to address that the best I can. And thank you for being an absolute legend. And once again, helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is another very generous donation, a $50 donation from Say What, who's also a channel legend as well. And thank you very much, Say What, for the support. And what he says is, as bad as things are going for Russia, I'm afraid we will soon find out if Putin will use nukes. What do you think?
And I would have to say, thank you for the massive support, Say What. And that's what I think about your super chat. Thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. Now, to answer your question, I would say that, yes, we're probably going to find out soon. Things are going really badly just across the board for the Russians. With an invasion of Belgorod and Kursk, election troubles, economic troubles, oil troubles, and on top of that, a stagnant war in Ukraine that's not really going anywhere for them, no matter how hard they're trying to make it go somewhere. I have a feeling that we're probably going to watch the Russian army, well, not just the Russian army, but the Russian government start seriously considering the use of tactical nuclear weapons. I still doubt that they would use them, because the public idea on nuclear warfare, really in every corner of the world, is that it is a terrible thing that shouldn't even be ventured down as an idea or an option. And so I have a feeling that that idea is still one that prevails inside of Russia as well, and the use of nuclear weapons like that would be considered a bad juju or bad dojo or whatever you want to call it, and they probably wouldn't still use it for that reason. If they did use it, I'm sure it'd be met by massive condemnation, not just from inside of Russia, but from the rest of the Western world, as the United States has made it very clear that the use of nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons inside of Ukraine will lead to direct U.S. armed involvement in the conflict. And if we were to take that as true, which we must, then that means that they probably would once again not use tactical nuclear weapons, because if the U.S. got involved in the conventional war, they got more than what they bargained for from trying to use a nuclear weapon like that. So I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And thank you so much once again, Say What, for being an old guard and a channel legend, and of course, supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, helping to make this channel a reality. And with that, y'all know what's up. We're on to the next one.
And our last one of the segment goes to a new super chatter, Total Noob 424 Conflict Total, who puts in a $25 donation. And sorry for butchering your name like that, but thank you very much for the support and being a first-time donor. He says, I just want to say thank you for everything you guys do. And I only started watching your channel a week or two ago, and I love how you guys do this, and keep up the amazing work. And welcome to the channel. Welcome to the LSA, by the way. I'm not sure if you discovered us through a stream or a video, but I would be curious to know. But nonetheless, it is excellent to have you, and of course, welcome to the LSA. And Enforcer, what say you?
And welcome to the Lee Spring Army. And of course, that is amazing to hear. Very rarely do we get people who throw in super chats that say that they've only been here about a week or two. That used to happen like 2 years ago, but these days, usually, the same people who support the channel tonight are people who've been supporting the channel for over 2 years at this point. That is incredible to hear that you've been watching the channel for such a short amount of time, but you still find it worthwhile to support. That's incredible, because you don't have to. There's a lot of people here who have been watching this channel for 2 years and just started super chatting about 2 or 3 weeks ago, probably when you started watching. And that is absolutely crazy to think that you have joined this channel and appreciate it enough that you would want to support it to help make it possible. That is incredible. And I gotta thank you so much for the kind words as well, and enjoying the work that we do. We try our best to make sure that the news stories we report are as accurate as possible and backed up with picture and video evidence to, once again, corroborate the evidence as best as we possibly can. That is wonderful to hear. I love to hear that. And thank you so much once again for enjoying the work we do, finding it worthwhile to support, finding it worthwhile to watch, and hopefully finding it worthwhile to hit the like button over. And so with that, thank you so much once again for your first super chat to the channel. And I hope that you are here to stay. Welcome again. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that amazing little outro right there to our question segment, it's now time for us to move on deeper into the war that's going on in Ukraine, because there was actually a couple of interesting things to happen inside of Ukraine today that did not happen inside of Russia, although Russia is once again kind of dominating the news headlines because of the ongoing war inside of Belgorod and Kursk, and not only that, everything else is happening inside of the country. But moving on into Ukraine, in one of our first bits of location unknown news, we got to hear why France would want to send troops into Ukraine. Here's the clip right here.
It was a controversial statement that caused very mixed reactions. In a prime-time interview broadcasted on two of France's largest television networks, French President Emmanuel Macron has once again reiterated his general willingness to send troops to Ukraine if the necessity arises. We're not in that situation today, he said, but added that all these options are possible. The reason for these bold statements, according to Macron, is simple. Today, to have peace in Ukraine, we must not be weak. If Russia were to win, he said, we would no longer have security in Europe. However, he also said that the responsibility for any scenario where NATO troops enter Ukraine lies with Moscow. Of course, such statements are tricky. But rather than actually wanting to send troops in the short term, Macron's statement seems to be more far-sighted. It's about drawing red lines and clarifying that France's support for Ukraine is unwavering. And if we look back, then Putin's full-scale invasion was built on the idea that the West would be too weak and indecisive to support Ukraine in the first place. If we look at the situation now, Putin's strategy seems to be at least partially built on the premise that support for Ukraine will crumble and Russia will be able to win a conflict that has vanished into the shadows. By the way, overnight, Ukrainian air defense shot down 27 Shahed drones. The Russian army also launched 7 S-300 and S-400 missiles at the Kharkiv and Donetsk region and a Kh-59 missile at the Poltava region. in Odessa, Ukrainian air defense was penetrated. At least 14 people died. Among them was a paramedic and an employee of the state emergency service who responded to provide aid after the initial explosion. Additionally, 46 people sustained injuries, including 7 rescue workers. The truly appalling thing about the strike was that it was a double tap, meaning after the first hit, when rescue workers and police were already on site, the Russians struck again.
But that's seen in that clip and that little statement from United 24, once again talking about the situation that France is looking at and why they're starting to get so militant about possibly sending troops into Ukraine. Moving on from that bit of location unknown news, we also got to see a brand new kind of Ukrainian drone. It's unnamed at the moment. There is actually no official name for this thing. Some people are assuming it's a member of the R-15 family of drones that we've seen used by the Ukrainians before, but it is quite a simple one. It also has an Arabic inscription on one of the panels, which is a very interesting quirk and feature of the drone. Beyond that, it looks like it uses a 2-stroke RC engine to power the drone, and it looks fairly simple beyond that, fairly small, maybe even a reconnaissance drone. But still, it was spotted today and yesterday, and it's still odd. No one knows what the thing is, no one knows what it's called, and no one knows what its real mission is. But with that, we are now moving on into our last bit of location unknown news, where we got to see that Russian casualty report, which was actually a little low today.
Oh, yeah, it is low. It's unusual. It's only 3 Bobcats today. I'm telling you, man. What happened? But it's still pretty high. Like, we're used to high losses meaning like 1,000 troops a day, but even a 580, that's pretty high.
I mean, that is pretty high. I mean, especially early war, that would have been a fairly good number. But only a whopping 580 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed today. Considering that today was a quieter time on the front line, really throughout all of Ukraine, it is really interesting to see that still 580 Russian soldiers ended up getting wounded and killed. 11 armored personnel carriers were wiped out, along with 34 34 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 15 artillery pieces, 34 drones, and 3 Bobcat skid steers. Overall, not that bad of a day, considering that the front lines were largely quiet through most areas. Most fighting just kind of stopped today. We believe due to poor weather or something similar along those lines, but still, not that bad to see, especially on the Ides of March, the day Julius Caesar got killed. And, you know, a little quick rabbit hole, a lot of people actually believe that Julius Caesar was killed inside of the Senate, and I'll show y'all where the Senate is. It's not near that railway station. It's actually right here, the Curia Julia, this building right here. A lot of people believe that he was actually killed here due to a play that was made by William Shakespeare later on that depicted it as that. He was actually killed near a, let me see here if I can find it. It's somewhere around here. I think it may actually be around here. This was some kind of like an amphitheater or something like that back in the day. Caesar went to the restroom, pretty much took like a restroom break, and then when he came out of the restroom, he ended up getting stabbed to death by all the senators. So it wasn't as glorious as they made it look in the play, or usually in most depictions of Caesar getting killed. He wasn't actually killed in the Senate. He was actually killed just a few blocks away, walking out of the restroom, and he got pretty much
those senators were savages back in the day.
Dude, they weren't playing around, man. Like, when they came out, I think there was a couple of actual eyewitness testaments that still survive to this day. They said that they just ran up behind him and just started stabbing him in the back all the way until he fell, and then just kept on stabbing him. So, you know, pretty cool little side note about that, about Caesar and all that, you know, just to get that out there for all y'all, and tell y'all a little bit more about Julius Caesar. But beyond that, we're now going to be moving on into the area of the front line. Well, also, by the way, that tied into the Ides of March, because the Ides of March, which was the whole reason why I told you all that quick little snippet, the Ides of March is remembered by Caesar getting stabbed. Let me, you know what? Killing of Caesar. So let's see here. Here we go. And here's that famous painting that everyone knows of Caesar getting killed, and this would make it look like this pretty much is supposed to be the Curia Julia, which is the Senate building in Rome, but that is not the case. He was not killed in there. He was killed right outside of a bathroom, pretty much. So, you know, a completely different thing. And I gotta tell y'all, political assassinations are absolutely irreparable. Well, that's like, just quick disclaimer, still abhorrent even over 2,000 years ago.
They just it would really suck to get killed by some guys wearing some blankets and getting stabbed to death out here and going, "Whoa, please don't stab me, please." It's like, who kind of pose is that?
Dude, man, I feel like if these guys could get away with wearing blankets, I feel like we should be getting away with wearing Snuggies in the Senate chambers these days. I think we ought to be able to. But anyways, I'm just kidding. I know someone's about to get pissed off. Be like, oh, it's a toga, you idiot. Yeah, I know, it's a toga, but we're making fun of the toga. But anyways, moving on from that and into the area of Kuzimivka, we got to see the Russian infantry getting hit hard. On the Ides of March. Golly, my ears are deaf.
Look at that lion with wings.
And DL says
with a bloody sword.
Yes. And DL Matthews said everyone pronounces Caesar wrong. It depends on where you're from, because Latin has no actual pronunciation rules. It actually depends on your native language, and you use those pronunciation rules to pronounce Latin. For the Germans, it's actually pronounced Kaiser, and that's where they got Kaiser from, like Kaiser Wilhelm. It means Caesar, because Caesar, after Caesar got killed, Caesar actually morphed from being just a name into the name of a leader. It was like a title of a position, and that's why Augustus Caesar is called Augustus Caesar.
I like Caesar better because you've heard of a Caesar salad, but you hadn't heard about no Kaiser Wilhelm salad. I'll tell you that.
Man, but I've heard of a Kaiser roll. You know what I mean?
No, that's true.
Checkmate.
He got rolled.
He got rickrolled. But speaking of which, we see these Russians getting rickrolled right here. And they're just slamming these guys. Slamming these guys like Jägermeister. Look at that. Disclaimer, I don't drink, so I don't know what people are slamming Jägermeister like, but still, the joke stands. But you see this Russian apparently learning how to crawl, and now they're going to make him learn how to sleep.
Oh.
We see them here.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. Have you ever wanted to watch a Russian get absolutely obliterated by a drone? Well, then you, my friend, are in luck. Introducing the sit down and play dead trick. It only works if the drone didn't see you when you were supposed to be alive, and so now they're about to get the treat of a lifetime, a bomblet. Just pretend like we're dead, Bliet. We're warm in hurt because we're still alive and our blood is pumping, but pretend like we're dead, Bliet. Start rolling, Bliet. No, don't roll into cover and leave me out here as the only target, Bliet. What the hell? And then we move on to the next clip. And we can see this Russian here running through the open. Actually, we can see them hugging each other because they like each other. Ooh.
Oh, dear.
Now he's learning to crawl. Back to basics.
Oh, he left that other guy out there. He's not going to bother with him. He's to the wolves. Da Vinci wolves.
He's just poking out a little bit. And the drone's trying to line it up just right. Oh, that's an M67. The boosh. Bada boom. Jugga jugga.
Oh, yikes.
I think that was some extra fabric.
It was a warm night that night, but it wasn't warm enough because the Russians got flung.
I don't even know how that works, but all right. All right.
I don't know, man. I was trying to pay attention to my impression of what's his name? Attenborough.
David Attenborough. But moving on from that now, the Kuzimivka area, it's time for us to move on down towards Bakhmut. Because down in the Bakhmut area, we got to see some Russian forces getting wiped out near Klishkivka. This actually happened about 7 days ago, but the 80th Air Assault Brigade finally put out their rendition of this massacre that happened, so we got to see it today.
Look at them. It's like action heroes.
Yeah. And you see the Russian column moving around and the 80th filming it. I see a lot of people down in the chat saying, "Holy moly!" Listen, y'all are just, it's just luggage, y'all. It's just luggage, spare fabric.
Here we can see the Russian herds traveling on their way to their new migratory positions. The Russian armored column attempts to make a new home in Klishkivka, but unfortunately, they run into the Ukrainian defenders. The Ukrainian defenders are an indigenous species to the land and are attempting to stop the voracious spread of the invasive Ruski soldat. We can see here that the Ukrainian defenders are mauling the Ruski soldat to an unbelievable degree, consuming them with a voracious appetite. The Russians never stood a chance of being able to invade and take over a new area of Ukraine. Here, the BMPs lie as solemn reminders of the Russians' failures and their inability to adapt to the modern environments of war. Here we can see the next Russian tank driving into the trap. I don't know what to call this, but it is a trap nevertheless. We can now see the Russian tank trying to vacate the field, as it's now realized it is in a terrible position.
That is the end of the clip, and very nice to see that the 80th Brigade is doing its thing and helping to knock out a mass number of Russian vehicles. Meanwhile, we also got to see a BMP crew of the 93rd conduct a drive-by shooting. We're going to be muting that, but here comes our drive-by shooter. And man, call this part of the front line competent, because there's drive-bys happening quite often these days. And look at them, they're just eating them up.
Man, these streets are dangerous.
Man, this is my problem solver right here. It just slaps the BMP. This is my problem solver right here.
Man, those Russians always getting caught lacking.
Man, they always lacking. And there goes the Ukrainians.
Oh, the Ukrainians, they aren't lacking.
Man, they aren't slacking either, man. They picking up the pace. But moving on from that clip out of the Bakhmut area and a little bit further down and on into Avdiivka, we also got to see the Russians trying to hide under a disabled Abrams near Berdichi and getting disciplined for making such a poor decision. Okay, we're going to be muting that. I don't know what that is. But anyways, we can see the bomblet falling on one of them. And that is an M1A1 Abrams right there. We've actually seen about 2 or 3 of these get disabled in the area of Avdiivka. We haven't seen any but one get destroyed out of the 3. The other 2 are disabled, and this is one of the ones that's been disabled and not completely destroyed. Still technically knocked out, but you know, it's not as bad as the Russians would want you to think. They can be recovered and still put back into service in the condition it's in right now. But moving on from that little clip, because that's all we got out of Avdiivka today, we also got to see that apparently the Ukrainians are creating a new branch of the service. They are creating the drone force as an independent branch of the Ukrainian armed forces. It's the first in the world, as a matter of fact. So here is the clip. It's a little bit of a lengthy one, but it is a very good one because it explains everything about drone forces in Ukraine, how they're used, how they're operated, and why they're creating a new branch that will specialize in the usage and operations of drones. And so, here's the clip.
Look. Is it an FPV?
Go, go, go. Yes, yes, yes.
Ukraine is preparing to create a new branch of the military, the drone forces. One of the prototypes is the 411 Separate UAV Battalion, also called the 411 Hawks. Today, they are taking us on 2 of their missions in one of the most difficult directions of the front line, Robotine.
So yesterday night, when we were watching the live drone feed from Robotine, which has become one of the main focal points of large Russian assaults we've been seeing the past months, we saw Russian BMP entering, soldiers exiting, distributing themselves in the village, and now it's not even 4 in the morning, and that's where we're heading. The job of the guys behind me, the job of the Hawks, will be to with the help of their drones, to try and get rid of the Russians, to root them out and to fend off any new assaults.
Зараз ми зупиняємося, а далі пішки.
We reached the dugout just before daylight breaks. Inside, the men are preparing today's weapons. We're close to the enemy, so they will be using FPVs, armed with various explosive charges.
This is an old Soviet munition, an RKG-3 grenade, a handheld anti-tank grenade, well proven against armored vehicles. Against infantry, we use a fragmentation grenade, both a kilogram and a 1.5 kilogram. And for shelters, we use a thermobaric, this kind. If you hit a dugout, it produces gases that explode and open the dugout.
With everything prepared, we wait.
We've been here now for a couple of hours. Quite absurd, actually, the situation, because we're sitting here just in a dugout in the middle of a field. On all these screens, you can see what's going on everywhere. We just saw a wounded Russian who's struggling for his life in a trench.
Suddenly, the men spot two Russians, fully armed and with backpacks, making their way through the tree lines.
Я понял. Да, можна влупити.
Сірий, мультики є?
So the aerial reconnaissance just spotted two Russians walking down the road with full backpacks and ammunition. That's why they grabbed this FPV drone. They've prepped it here. Now we'll go back to the command center and watch on the screen when the FPV drone pilot flies this thing towards those two soldiers.
It's delicate work. As drone technology is rapidly advancing, so are electronic countermeasures. This time, the men lose control of their drone before they reach the two Russians. Commanders like Hort are faced with the challenges of a rapidly changing war. He has been in the army for 10 years, starting as an assault trooper and now commanding the Hawks strike groups. In his opinion, drone battalions like the Hawks are necessary because of their flexibility.
We are firefighters. We put out fires wherever they are. It's that simple. We don't have our own infantry or front line, which is held by our guys. And since we're fighting in a war where we are outnumbered by the enemy, we need this modern approach. Technological, smarter at times, and more effective.
But while drones provide a cost-effective and technologically witty solution that has become indispensable, they will not make up for the lack of artillery shells.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough artillery ammunition. There's a big shortage. Yes, you can attach anything to a drone, even outdated ammunition from the 40s, and it will be effective, but artillery systems can never be replaced. First of all, because of their range and their firepower.
The Russians are well aware of Ukraine's weak spots. Just as the sun sets, we see a column of armored vehicles heading towards the village. Sadly, the men can only watch, since without night vision, these FPVs are useless. The situation we experience is symbolic. Drones are a great help, but without enough shells for artillery, Ukraine is once again facing overwhelming tasks.
We ready? Let's hit it.
It's time for us to leave, and we embark on the perilous journey back to one of the command posts. Despite the danger, Hort's spirits are high.
Хочу передати привіт всім тим, хто розбиває нам дороги своїми зілами, Уралами і гусеничною технікою. Ми, бідні ТРОшники, на джипах потім проїхати не можемо, ми ходимо пішки.
Look. War is funny in its own strange way. Every joke can be followed by a quick reality check.
Is it an FPV?
Go, go, go! Go, go, go! Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, damn, that was a Russian FPV drone up there?
Yeah, it was.
Modern battalions like
Jeez,
the
man, they were
Hawks
kind
rely on
of
the
somewhat
red
calm for that thing to be hovering right over their head like that.
Yeah, they're like, oh look, it's death. It's like, quick, get in the truck and let's
Really?
go. It's like that is a very nerves of steel kind of response.
I would say.
But back to the video, because we still have a lot to go on this. Like, I hope y'all been enjoying this so far. I have been trying to interrupt as little as possible because the United 24 did such a masterpiece job of putting this together. It feels like a disservice to interrupt it and explain anything at all, because they did a really good job and it was great reporting. So we're going to get right back to the video.
and creativity of women like Yuda, who left their jobs in the IT sector to join the battle.
My name is Yuda. Before the war, I was working as business analyst and product owner for the little but mighty company in IT sphere. Right now, I'm working as analyst. I'm serving my team, cherry picking some best targets, analyzing different types of information like OSINT, SIGINT.
How would you compare electronic and drone warfare between Russia and Ukraine?
Yes, it's actually a great question because like Russians were more prepared to war than we were, and they really have good school of radio intelligence, of electronic warfare, and that's actually a good challenge for us. Those huge systems, they are fragile. We can like destroy it or damage it seriously using some kind of like several thousand bucks drone.
Last question. You, as a woman and as an IT-schnick, I guess you would say you are a bit of an outsider in two ways. How easy or hard was it for you to adapt?
Frankly speaking, I'm lucky enough to serve in like separate battalion, so we do have really like more experimental structure. At the same time, like working in IT in Ukraine, it is actually more or less the same. I have this joke that what has changed. I'm just swearing more.
After a couple of
Fair
hours
enough.
at the base, we follow the Hawks on their next mission. We have been awake for almost 24 hours, but it's worth it. The team will be flying Siege, a highly classified drone, and we are the first team of journalists to capture it in action. The Siege can be used for reconnaissance and, like tonight, to attack targets deep behind enemy lines. Unarmed, it can fly around 200 kilometers. If equipped with two 1.8 kilogram bombs, it can make a round trip of 80 kilometers, giving it a longer range than most artillery systems Ukraine has. The most amazing thing, though, is that it flies completely autonomously. Once it's outside of the radio signal, there's no calling it back. All you can do is wait for it to return.
So as you can see, they're just arming the drone and then it's ready to launch. It's going to be fired off from this catapult. But the most amazing thing about it actually is that it contains two flashcards. One records the flight, but the second one contains all the information the drone needs to fly, to attack its target, and to return automatically. So there's no one controlling or flying it.
Wow, that's incredibly cool.
While the Siege is flying deep behind enemy lines, we speak to Bug. He was a programmer before the war. Now he uses his skills to improve the software that enables them to program the autonomous flight paths of the Siege.
The Siege was developed at a time when there were no HIMARS in Ukraine, and the distance of 70 kilometers was not accessible by our artillery. So we didn't have anything to hit ammunition depots with, and the Siege was designed to destroy them. The manufacturer and everybody else liked what we did with the program. I started adjusting the weather. I started adjusting the terrain. The drone takes into account almost everything: takeoff, landing, approach to targets, and so on. It used to take an hour to build a mission from the programming side. Now it just takes 10 minutes.
After more than 24 hours in the field, we head home. The Siege mission was a success, by the way. The bomber eliminated both its targets, an ammo depot and a cluster of cars 40 kilometers behind the front line. This shows battalions like the Hawks, integrating new personnel, techniques, and equipment are the future of modern warfare. But every future is built on the present, and without more equipment, more artillery systems and shells, even brave, innovative battalions like these won't be able to stop the Russian horde.
And with that, that's the end of that little clip that very long clip right there, but still a very in-depth and interesting analysis on the Ukrainian drone forces and what kind of challenges they're currently facing and what kind of new innovations are being made by the Ukrainians, both on the doctrinal level and also on the technological level, to try and deal with the Russians inside of Ukraine. Moving on from that and down into the southern front near Chervony, we were also able to see that more Russians were being destroyed in this area.
Right near Chernobyl.
Well, kind of, sort of.
Look at that.
Oh my. Oh my. Whoa, Romania.
Oh.
Romania.
Oh, unintentional. Oh.
Aw, man.
Oh.
Everyone hates me now, but we can see the drones. All right, getting them good.
Hot dog, hot diggity dog.
And we see here that they're getting ready to target another one. Ooh! Oh my. Oh my. They're really getting them. They're really getting them good.
Someone said, yo! They just saw what was on the screen.
Yo! It's a world star!
Man, look, there's one of the two things right there in the bottom left corner of the screen. He said, oh, a wee wee, hello there.
Man, that thing right there, listen, man, I don't have kids, but if I did, I wouldn't trust that thing around my kids down there in the corner. I would not. Like, the thing was looking a little sus. That thing's looking a little odd.
It might be saying something along the lines of, oh, man, I have a hot dog I could sell you if you would like some. Aw, extra relish. Aw, man.
Aw, man.
Just in a second.
And we can see them continuing to hit the Russians. While we take like 10 seconds to just collect ourselves, we can see them continuing to hit the Russians. And hit them rightly.
I think this division might have done their duty.
I think they may have. They kind of linger the camera around for like 30 seconds after the fact. Oh! Oh my heavens! It's a magic trick. The man's gone. Yeah, he's gone. Huh. Oh, what do you know? Puff of smoke, guy's gone. It's like magic. It's like Houdini. Aw, man. They're about to get another one. Aw. Oh, man.
I love the energy. No energy. I love it.
Aw, man. Wow. Look at that. Wow. Aw. Yeah. Anyways, we're going to be ending the clip there.
Hot diggity dog.
Man, hot dog, hot diggity dog. Wait, that's covered. Sorry. But anyways, moving on from that, now to the southern front, we're now moving on to the Enhodar nuclear power plant, because a video came out today confirming that the Russians are using it as a military base. We knew that up until now, but it was confirmed by this clip today, and here it is. There's a whole bunch of Ural 4320s down there. There's some armored personnel carriers. As they filmed these guys,
those are some sick bastards, by the way, to use a nuclear facility as a shield against attacks. That is just the utmost stupidity and also just recklessness all the way around.
All the way around. I would have to agree with that completely. But once again, confirming that it's a real thing that actually did happen. But hey, you know what else is a real thing? Russian ships sinking to the bottom of the sea. And you know what's really real about that? Is that the amount of metal that these ships are made out of is actually pretty valuable. And so salvaging them and scrapping them is a pretty lucrative business. And it appears that some Russian salvage vessels have started to coalesce around the area of the sinking of the Caesar Kunikov. and it looks like they're possibly going to try and refloat the vessel and bring it to salvage, or break it up on the bottom of the sea and try and salvage it that way, one or the other. We know that the ship's a complete loss, and they're not going to be able to reuse it or anything like that, but it does look like they're going to attempt to make some cash off of that thing, because there might be dead Russians inside, but you know what else is in that thing? Money, baby! And so they're going to be ripping it apart and, selling it for scrap, pretty much. Best way to explain that. But moving on out of Crimea, it's time for us to get all the way up to Kyiv to cover the speech for President Volodymyr Zelensky here on this amazing, incredible day of the 15th of March, the Ides of March. What do you know? And without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Дорогі українці, українки, зараз в Одесі ще тривають рятувальні роботи та надання допомоги після російського ракетного удару. Дуже підлого удару цих покидьків, 2 ракети і друга, коли на місце влучання прибули рятувальники та лікарі. Серед загиблих та постраждалих фельдшери, екстренки, рятувальники ДСНС. Мої співчуття усім рідним та близьким. Десятки поранених. Продовжується пошук людей під завалами, залучені всі необхідні служби. Вдячний кожному, хто підтримує людей зараз і рятує життя. Дякую всім поліцейським і ДСНС, і медикам, і волонтерам, комунальним службам. Я доручив обласній владі повністю підтримати усіх постраждалих. Наші сили оборони обов'язково зроблять все, щоб російські вбивці відчули нашу справедливу реакцію. Провів кілька нарад з військовим керівництвом та нашими урядовцями. Головком Сирський разом з міністром оборони були на фронті, представили сьогодні звіт щодо наявної ситуації та підготовки наших дій. Обговорили і забезпечення снарядами фронтової ППО. Головком дав оцінку загальної ситуації та дій командирів на першій лінії. Я вдячний усім вищим офіцерам, хто разом зі солдатами, разом із бойовими підрозділами дійсно займається фронтом. Узгодили сьогодні з головкомом подальші активні кроки. Обговорили сьогодні ж виробництво та застосування наших ударних дронів, далекобійних дронів. По російській логістиці, по їхній системі фінансування війни. Спільна нарада, головком, міністр оборони, начальник Генштабу, керівники ГУР, СБУ, командувач сил безпілотних систем, Сухаревський. Всі чітко розуміють завдання, конкретні цілі. Кабінет міністрів повинен зробити все для створення ще більш технологічних та далекобійних масових дронів. Це повинен бути конвейер російської відповідальності за терор. І це принциповий момент, багато в чому історичний. Чим більше наших справедливих відповідей буде російській державі, та чим більш відчутними будуть наші дії проти російської системи, тим важче буде Путіну продовжувати своє хворе правління, а отже й війну. Ще одне. Провів нараду щодо нашої міжнародної роботи. Підсумки, комунікації з партнерами за першу половину березня та перемовини, які заплановані найближчими тижнями. Працюємо над тим, щоб виконати кожну домовленість, зокрема і щодо спільних оборонних виробництв. Україна стане ще сильніше. Я дякую всім, хто працює заради нашої держави і людей. Я дякую всім, хто б'ється заради України. Слава Україні!
And Heron Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 751 of the war in Ukraine. And it's time for us to move on into the next segment of the stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. It's the part that I enjoy the most, because we get to sit down and chit-chat with all of you. We get to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. Where you're from, what you're doing, where you're going, what's going on in Russia, what's going on in Ukraine. Anything and everything. It's on the table. But most importantly, one thing that we do have to talk about, we have to talk about the convoy that's been driving through Belgorod. They look like they're unopposed. And from what we know, they're not posing, so they're unopposed, I suppose. But with that, Matthew, what do you think about them driving through that place like that?
So we asked you all what were your thoughts about the Freedom of Russia Legion convoy driving unopposed through Belgorod today. 45% said the Free Russians will move even faster now, and 32% said it's too early to tell, while 16% said the Free Russians will slow down. And I have a suspicion that the Free Russians will move faster. To me, it looks like Belgorod is going to be a victory for them. There doesn't seem to be enough Russians there to defend that city, but I think they're going to move a little bit beyond Belgorod, and then they might meet some resistance there. It's not going to be tremendous resistance, but it will be some. They won't be able to drive straight through. They'll have to stop for just a minute, tend to some business, and then head about their way. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Free Russians are going to move faster. I would have to say so. I mean, like, the speed at which they're moving is actually fairly fast from what we know. It's about 6 miles a day right now in some areas. So I would assume that they're going to be able to rapidly overtake Belgorod and then move beyond it. Especially if the Russian public is generally passive against the Free Russian Army, and they have most of the public's well wishes behind them, they could probably move on very quickly and move deeper into Russia, possibly towards Voronezh, or start meeting up with the Free Russian Army in Kursk and create a semi-autonomous country of a sort out of the two oblasts, combining them together. They could try and pull something like that off. And I would have to say, I think they're going to start moving fairly quickly, at least in my opinion, because they already are. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed, at least in my opinion. And it's only my opinion, folks. My opinion can be wrong. You know, I might run this stream and everything, but it can be wrong. And in the past, it's been wrong several times. We've been right on some things, wrong on others. So, you know, it's up to you. Do you trust what I say? Do you believe in my opinion, or do you not? Because either way, it doesn't really matter much. It's just an opinion, and everyone's got one. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I just want to say a huge shout out to everybody for subscribing to the channel as well. All the new viewers out there. And also thank you to our existing viewers as well. They've been subscribed for a long time.
Really?
But we're almost about to hit 170,000 subscribers. We're like a couple hundred away from that. And we've been growing by leaps and bounds this last week or so. And thousands of new LSA members have joined us. So huge shout out to all y'all for that and joining the stream. It's good to have you. And with that, we are moving into our super chat segment once again. And our first one is going to go to Jolly Hiveling, who's a longtime channel legend, by the way, and puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much. They said, I just want to say, They said, sorry, my R button was stuck. Damn. Also, thank you very much for your hard work, and glory to the heroes in LSA.
LSA and LSA. And thank you so much once again for support. Jolly Hiveling. What a jolly Hiveling, I gotta say. And it's great to have you around. And thank you so much for supporting the channel tonight. You've been here for a long time. You're an old guard. By the I think the true definition of old guard, you're an old guard. And I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I gotta say, and it's okay, your R button was stuck. We're still gonna read it. But beyond that, thank you so much for appreciating our hard work and enjoying it. It's great to know that so many people have. Like right now, it's the question segment. There's still 5.5 thousand people here. That's mental. Because y'all know something crazy. It wasn't that long ago. It was about a month ago that the peak viewership we would get on a stream would be 5.5. And right now, this is the lowest point since the start of the stream. At the peak tonight, there were 8,000 people here. 8,000 people on the stream live at one moment. That is a load of people. And I can't believe that so many people enjoy the work we do so greatly that all of y'all would pack in here to watch this. It blows us away. And I gotta say that I'm so happy to hear that that you're one of those folks, Hiveling, that appreciates this channel, really enjoys it, and finds it worthwhile to watch and worthwhile to be here. And I'm so happy that we've been able to make it an enjoyable place. Got to give a huge credit to Matthew for moderating the live chat really well, smacking down bots. That is a big part of what makes the live chat so enjoyable to be in. But beyond that, the stream is enjoyable solely just because we put in a decent amount of effort into trying to make this fun. Although it is a war, we want people to be able to listen to the news and also not be overburdened by the news that's being delivered. And I got to thank you so much for appreciating that. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you for the kind words, and glory to the heroes, or Heroam Slava, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Richard Hawkins, who throws in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Richard, for that very generous support. And he says very simply, and most importantly, support Ukraine.
And I agree. Support Ukraine. We do support Ukraine. That's what we do every night we run this channel. We support Ukraine by wishing them the best. Of course, if folks really want to support Ukraine, the best way y'all can, make sure to be here for Sunday, because that's when we run the Sunday fundraiser. To everyone who's new, who's wondering, when do we actually help out Ukraine? Well, we help them out on Sundays, every Sunday, by supporting a nonprofit that helps out in Ukraine. But beyond that, thank you so much, Richard Hawkins, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Your support is helping this channel out and helping to support us, so that way we can keep this channel running, keep on covering the news, and continue to have this channel exist Sunday after Sunday, where we can run those Sunday night fundraisers and help to support the Ukrainians in a meaningful way. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Richard Hawkins, for being an absolute legend and supporting the channel again and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Ari Soini, who puts in a $25 donation. And huge shout out to Ari for that support. And also, Ari's a longtime channel legend. Kiwi Wife and Finn. They said, good evening in LSA.
And good evening to you, Ari Sweeney, or Kiwi Wife and Finn, and LSA to both of y'all. I hope y'all are having a great time down there in the land of Zealand, but it's the brand New Zealand, so they call it New Zealand, as opposed to the old Zealand, which I don't really know where that one is, but we'll find it one day. But beyond that, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for supporting this channel, and good evening to you. I hope y'all are having a great one down there in New Zealand, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and I love to see that so many people are really enjoying and really happy about the Lee Spring Army. And by the way, folks, I don't mean to mercilessly plug, but call me the Free Russian Army, because we're going to mercilessly persecute this objective, because I have to bring y'all over to something that has been in the works for a while in the background, and something that many people are really excited about. It's the LSA flag. It's coming around the corner.
It's coming out tomorrow, baby. Let's go.
Tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. This little fella here, this little big fella, it's going to go live, and it's going to be making all kinds of wake. It's going to be loads of excitement, because believe it or not, a lot of people have signed up for the newsletter on this thing. And Matthew, like, I know, like, we of course have to keep that top secret. But the number is unbelievable for the amount of people who are watching this website, and also all the people who signed up for the update for when this flag actually drops for pre-order. It's insane.
It is unbelievable, because we didn't even plug the URL last night. We didn't tell anyone to go over here, because all you'll see is a landing page telling you the site's coming soon. But people took it upon themselves to go over there. They signed up in mass for the email notifications on the site to let you know when it opens. So it looks like the demand is going to be pretty huge. And like I said the other night, we got our work cut out for us, and we're going to have to set up this thing to absolutely pump these flags out. I'm telling you what, man.
I'm telling you what. But yes, it is going to be an absolutely incredible thing. We can't wait to do it. Not to plug it again and again and again, but we do want people to know about this, because it's a big thing that we've been working on. We're really proud about it, and I know that the whole Lee Spring Army is proud that we finally have a flag to gather around. This flag is the best quality we could make it. It is a double-sided LSA flag. That means that it is two flags sewn together into one, so it's ultra thick. It's ultra high quality. It's made out of ADD polyester, which is one of the best polyesters that you can make a flag out of. It is a 3 foot by 5 foot flag, so it is your standard post flag, I guess. Well, actually, a post flag is a little bit larger, I believe, than this 3 foot by 5 foot. But this is your standard size flag that you would find out there really anywhere in the world that you could get. So it is a standard size flag. It's not tiny. It's not minutely small. It's actually incredibly big. A 3 foot by 5 foot flag is pretty large, because 5 feet, imagine standing up if you're like, 5'10" or something like that. This thing is almost as tall as you. So it's a pretty big flag. It's a very nice one. Has the emblem of the LSA on it. All of them are incredibly beautiful looking. And of course, I'm signing it. Now, when you click pre-order, and I honestly think the pre-order page shows off our flag better, there's the main picture of the flag. Here's the signature on the flag once again, and every single one of them is going to be hand signed by me. So in the bottom right corner of every single flag, it will have a signature. This is going to be the only edition of the flag that I sign, is this first limited edition drop. There will never be another flag in the history of this channel that I sign, unless, and this is something that we know is coming around in the future, way down the line when we get 250,000 or 300,000 subscribers, we're actually going to start doing in real life fan meets to meet everyone who enjoys the channel and watches it and wants to meet us in person. And if you bring a flag to one of those events, of course I'll sign it or autograph it. But for now, these are going to be the only flags ever that are put out in a merch run that are autographed. So you want an autographed LSA flag, this is the one to get. It's going to be incredibly cool. They're $54 a piece, and each person can only get 2 of them. So we also had to do that to limit the number, because right now, from what we know, just from the amount of people who signed up for the newsletter, which is it's mind-blowing how many people did. We are really going to have our work cut out for us. It's like at this, like, I'm not going to give an exact number, but it is hundreds of flags that we're going to have to sign and ship out. And we're absolutely, it's a lot. We are absolutely blown away at the moment as to how many people are actually interested in this flag. And so it's going to be a lot of work to get these out. We're more than happy to do it, but we're going to limit everyone to only 2 flags apiece. Once again, we are so happy to have this going out, and tomorrow begins the week of LSA, which will build up to the 23rd of March, which is LSA Day. And we're going to have a very special event on LSA Day. But starting tomorrow, it is the week of the Lee Spring Army. And it will lead up to the Lee Spring Army Day, or Lee Spring Army, Lee Spring Army Day, which is on the 23rd of March. This limited edition run will start at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And it will run all the way up until midnight Central Time. I know, a little confusing. So I'll make that less confusing. It's going to start at 8:30 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. And then it's going to run all the way until midnight on the 23rd, 7 days later.
And also, if you want to go over to the site right now and sign up for the notifications for the store, you can do so by going to officialenforcerstore.com. No spaces, just officialenforcerstore.com.
Can you put
and you can go over there and put your... yeah, I actually can. I can type it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be a lot easier for everyone. So that you can just click on it.
There we go. So if you punch that into Google, it'll take you to our landing page where it says the site is under construction, and you can sign up over there. So that way we know exactly how many people are likely going to be interested in it as well. Also tonight, because we got so many last night as well, and help us to prepare just a little bit. But of course, it will be open tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. So very exciting.
Yeah, and it's going to be incredibly cool. I cannot wait for all of y'all to get one of these. I can't wait to see these out there, and I hope that I see some of these flying here in Alabama. I hope I see these flying around the world. Really, in my mind, the coolest thing to see is if y'all send back pictures that there are LSA flags flying in Britain, Germany, France, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, India. I want to see Lee Spring Army flags flying across the entire globe. That would be so cool to see. That would really make my day. And what would be very cool, and I want to put this out there because we do know that there are Ukrainian soldiers watching this show right now, and also some other groups of people watching this show that are here in America, but they're pretty high up. If y'all would like a flag, reach out to us. We may not do this for anyone outside of Ukraine, but if you are in the Ukrainian armed forces and you want a flag for your frontline unit, reach out to us on Twitter, and we might be able to see about getting y'all a flag just shipped out to y'all, so that way y'all can also have a Lee Spring Army flag if y'all watch the channel and y'all enjoy it. So just throwing that out there, that would be very cool if anyone in Ukraine would want one of these flags that's currently fighting on the front lines, so that way when we show any clips of the news happening in the day, if one of these flags show up, we know that those soldiers are a part of the Lee Spring Army as well, which would be incredibly cool to see, and would show the Lee Spring Army is behind them all the way. But with that, I hope we were able to address that the best I can, I say. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Ari Sweeney. I hope that addressed your super chat fairly well, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, for some reason, YouTube won't let me put the link in there with the actual hyperlink in it. So you'll have to type it in yourself into Google, officialenforcerstore.com, to get to it.
No.
And I'm going to stop saying that before I sound like an infomercial salesman or something like that, because I'm starting to get there. And wait, we're not done yet. But anyways, with that, we're moving on to our next super chat, which is going to go to Chase Maddie, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Chase Maddie, for that support. And he says, "Hey, enforcers, and what is one new invention or technological advancement that will be made in the war in the next year or two besides FPV drones?"
I think this is going to sound so stupid because you're like, beyond the FPV drones, technically it is, but I think this is really going to be a big innovation. The evolution of anti-drone electronic warfare is probably going to be one of the biggest things that grows, because drone warfare is really, I think, the only innovation that's actually coming out of this war, and it's a huge one. It's as revolutionary as the machine gun was in its time, because it's making a whole bunch of military thinking obsolete. The drone is, and I think that anti-drone warfare is going to become the fastest growing thing along with drone warfare. That's what I would believe at the moment. And so, to explain that a little bit better, I think the infantry squad of the future is going to be a lot similar to the ones we see today with fire team leaders, but the fire team leaders are most likely all going to be equipped with something attached to their backpack that is some kind of electronic warfare system. Something similar like that, because we're starting to see that that's kind of becoming a little bit common now. But I think in modern Western militaries, like the United States military, we're probably going to see that electronic warfare measures are standard issued pieces of equipment for the infantry, so that way they are able to stop the drones from attacking the infantry. Also, I think laser warfare is going to become really big in the future as well, because the British are already showing us the true infancy of usable laser weapons. We've had laser weapons already, but they're very rare, very expensive at this point, and kind of something that hasn't been fleshed out. It looks like the British are finally fleshing it out from what we saw just a while ago, and I think laser-based warfare is going to become a really big thing as well. On top of that, I also think that orbital warfare, which is what the Space Force focuses on, is going to be a massive growing field of warfare as well. And a lot of people get that a little misinterpreted. They think orbital warfare means that we're going to send guys up into space and they're going to shoot at each other up there. That more so means we're going to be fighting against enemy satellites, and having a really intricate system of fighting enemy satellites and protecting our own satellites from foreign interference. So I think that those are going to be the biggest realms of warfare that are going to change. But I also want to say that while lasers, drones, and orbital warfare sounds really sci-fi when you think about it, warfare isn't really going to change that much in appearance, actually, from what we see today. War is going to generally look the same throughout all time, because as long as a actual human has to be involved in fighting a war, it will pretty much end up looking the same. It's just that it's going to get more complex, more intricate. There's going to be different facets of warfare, like orbital warfare, drone warfare, or laser warfare. And also, I don't ever think we're going to see laser weapons being used as primary service weapons on the front line for quite a while, probably the next 70 years, because that kind of a smaller, modular kind of a weapon system that would be the size of a rifle has just simply never been invented yet where it's effective. The best that those kinds of laser systems can do is blind someone permanently, and that is actually banned by the Geneva Convention. So you can't use a laser weapon to go out there and shine it in someone's eyes like a little prick kid in like first grade and blind someone with it. That's a literal war crime. So I don't think we'll be seeing anything rapidly changing in like the realm of what a ground war looks like. But drone warfare, anti-drone warfare, laser warfare, and orbital warfare are certainly going to be the fastest growing kinds of innovations we're really ever going to see. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And good googly moogly, Matthew just told me that we just got a new wave of people who are signing up to the newsletter to be notified.
We got a chunk of people signing up, man. A whole chunk.
It is bigger than the group we had last night. I mean,
massive.
This is insane. We actually have no actual scale right now of how many people are getting that flag. I'm actually really nervous because I don't even know if my hand will be able to hold up signing that many flags. But we're gonna do it. Damn it! It doesn't matter if y'all buy thousands of these things, we are going to sign all of them and have them mailed out eventually. I promise. But still, oh my god, dude, that is crazy. That is crazy.
I have enough packaging materials. I don't know if I do.
Captain,
I don't think this is messing my numbers up, man.
Man, dude, I'm really scared now. Like, I'm scared because y'all don't know. Like, we saw that there was a massive demand greater than our original figures, and we were like, okay, well, we'll make it a pre-order. And then we had like a general idea where like it's going to be in between this number and that number as the lowest and the highest. And now, based on what we're seeing, it's going to even at the minimum, it's higher than the highest number we expected on pre-order. So, geez, I mean, I don't know what we're about to be doing, but we are going to be.
We're about to be doing a lot.
Yeah, we're going to be doing.
We're about to be working nonstop. Our days are going to be full of order fulfillment, man. It's going to be full of it every single day, and I'm going to love it. I'll tell you what, because it's our first time. It might get old after a while, like fulfilling orders, and we might have to figure out a better way to do it. But for now, with it being our first time, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be a lot of work, but very exciting. And also, I'm excited for y'all to get this stuff because we've made such a cool package and a little packaging and everything to put the flag in, and the flag itself is so cool. You know, I want to send one to myself, man, because I want to get the whole package together and just see it again.
I want to see it, man. I want to see it. And let's see. And some people.
Oh, and also, by the way, I saw Snow White say real quick, is it open for order? It's not open for order right now. The landing page where you can sign up for notifications is open at officialenforcerstore.com. But it's not until tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. When the actual pre-orders for the LSA flag will actually open. So they're not open yet, but they will be tomorrow at 9:30.
And I hope also it's 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Because I don't know how to work that out because usually we do everything on Eastern Time on this channel, and Matthew's actually correct in saying it will open at 9:30 Eastern Time, but we're doing this whole thing off of Central Time because it will end at 12. It will end at midnight Central Time on the 23rd. But if we did that Eastern Time, that means it ends at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. So I decided that we do it on Central Time to make it a little bit simpler. Or really, the best way to look at it is that the merch store pre-order availability will end at pretty much at the end of this stream on LSA Day. That's another good way to look at it because it'll probably be around the same time. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And Matthew, I think we might actually start putting the Lee Spring Army flag somewhere in the intro for a limited point, because it would be good to have everyone get used to seeing the flag, so that way everyone knows what our flag is. You know, they can rep the colors. You know what I mean?
Indeed. I do know someone who makes some really sick animations, which is Nutters, by the way.
Yes.
He makes some really cool ones and sends them to me all the time. I love to see them, and I think he might have one perfect for the intro.
Man, also, by the way, I want to give another shout out to Nutters, because Nutters, I know that every single time I respond to you on Discord, I'm like, wow, that's cool. And like, that's it. I actually sit there and look at those for like 7 minutes. And I'm like, dang, look at that. Like, these are all really good. But sadly, I don't type well at all. Like many of y'all may notice that I'm a very short-worded typer. I'm a much better talker than I am a typer. And I want to apologize to everyone who ever talks to me over like texting or anything like that, because I never text a lot. It's just something I don't do. But I promise you, Nutters, what you're doing is incredible. I love to see it, and I thank you so much for sending us an endless volume of ideas and different kinds of artwork, because it is really, really impressive stuff. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And a bootlegger said you might have to put your mom and dad to work. And actually, that's a good idea. That's a good thing you mentioned that, because we are actually thinking about putting them to work if it gets crazy for us. Because, like, no joke, we're not saying this just to make it dramatic or anything like that. Like, this is our first time doing this, and we are super excited to ship the flags out to y'all. But at the same time, like, practically speaking, we are prepared for the big influx of orders coming up, which it looks like there might be a lot. And we have to have some extra hands on deck to be able to get that done. So that way it doesn't take weeks for y'all to get your flags, which would be a little bit long if you ask me. But we might put those two to work. They might need to be down here helping.
Also, by the way, Matthew, I've been, I was able to go talk to some incredible people who watch the channel, and Matthew, you know who I'm talking about, and they also all offered their assistance if need be to help. So if it became such a big thing that we had to kind of mobilize a small like fire team at the LSA, it is available. So
Oh, good.
Hopefully we won't have to call them because it was an incredibly kind offer from all of them. But I'd hate to have to draw in just Lee Spring Army soldats out of the blue and be like, get in here, like it's a war now. But we might actually have to because we at this point we're realistically looking at literally hundreds of flags that are going to have to be sent out, hand signed and packaged, and we don't really know, even if we have the whole family working on this, Matthew and me and Mama and Pops, we don't really know if we're all going to be able to do that together. So we
no. If we have them included in it, like we'll definitely get them out. Like y'all don't be concerned about that. They will get out. It just may take an extra couple of days, but with some extra hands on deck, we can easily process those. It just takes a lot of work.
I want to make that clear. Like it will be done. It's just a matter of how long it will take to be done. So it like if we have like all four of us together and there's multiple endless hundreds of them, we might be able to get all of them out within several weeks. But if we have multiple hundreds of them and we have like maybe 8 people working on it, we could probably get that all out in maybe a week and a half or something like that. But they will all get out. All of the orders will be fulfilled. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And also, Matthew, if it really gets bad and there are thousands of orders, we can always call up General Petraeus and a couple of others and see if they can get the entire U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to figure out a system, like one or the other. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to the Mr. Anderson. And Mr. Anderson, he puts in a 20. And thank you very much. He says, happy Friday. And does Russian aircraft have IFF transponders like ours do? And I think that's what they're called. And Slava Ukraine.
And let me make sure. Identify friendly forces. Transponder. Make sure. Yep, that's exactly what it is. So to answer that question, no. No, they do not. You're kind of like, what the hell do you mean? Mr. Anderson, if you're asking that question, it's a good question to ask. From what we understand, they don't have any kind of IFF systems on their aircraft or tanks because we see that the friendly fire rates are actually quite high inside of the Russian forces, even on the ground air defense side of things. So it looks like they actually don't have any, just by the rate of friendly fire incidents that occur. So with that, I hope that does address that quite well. It's a really short answer, but just from what we can tell, there just is no system like that for the Russians. And the best indicator of that is just the friendly fire rates. We see that the Russians end up shooting down a decent amount of their aircraft over any span of time, and it makes it quite clear there's apparently no way that they're able to identify if a vehicle is friend or foe unless if they visually identify it, and apparently they have a pretty high error rate trying to visually identify the craft as friendly or enemy. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for asking a good question. And that is what they call. They're like called identification friend or foe, or identity friend or foe, something like that. But it's an IFF, and you did get the name correct. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Slava Ukraine, thank you for asking a really cool question. We've very, very rarely ever had questions like that about the IFF systems over the course of the war. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jason Carpenter, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you, Jason, as well, as always, for that support. He says, I'm very happy to see how far the channel has come, and here's to a future of bigger and better things, and thank you for all the efforts and LSA rules, and please take one from the chat.
Thank you so much, Jason Carpenter, best and favorite Carpenter in the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for the kind words. And I'm very happy to see how far the channel has come as well. Y'all wouldn't believe this if I told you, but y'all will because, it's true. But we've actually gained just shy of 1,000 subscribers today. Again, mental. It's truly mental to even comprehend because the channel is growing at such a speed that we're putting out on Twitter every day now that we've passed another 1,000 subscribers. Like literally every day if you go and check the Twitter, it's almost like, hey, we passed 166, 167, 168, 169. We are literally just less than 200 away from 170,000 subscribers right now. So we are getting there. Like we're actually getting way on up there at this point. So going off of that, I'm so happy to see that as well. Because, like the subscribers aren't just about the subscribers. It's more so a testament of how many people are finding this channel and enjoying it enough that they want to hear from us again. And that's one thing that just makes us so excited. is knowing that people do like it and do want to watch it. And I got to thank you so much, Jason Carpenter, for enjoying that and loving to see it, because we love to see it, and we know that the Lee Spring Army will never die. And this whole past month and a half that this has been going on, pretty much, has been such a amazing thing. It feels now like we finally got vindicated of all of the stuff that got done to us almost 6 or 7 months ago, and it's just amazing to see that people are finding this channel again and enjoying it. We truly were like a phoenix rising out of the ashes, out of what happened back in October, and are now right back in our zone doing our thing. And at the exact same time, it's just amazing, because so many people that just didn't believe in us or absolutely hated us are now starting to finally hear the tunes of the music. And it feels like it is a long time kind of a thing coming, and it looks like a lot of people are finally starting to wise up about some of the things that happened nearly 6 or 7 months ago. And once again, it makes sure that Jason, that the Lee Spring Army rules, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we will take one from the live chat.
And this one from the live chat is going to go to Carrie Ann Corzo, who says, was anyone running against Putin, or was he unopposed in the election?
There were other people running against Putin, but they're usually just there to be there. There's not really any real contenders because the votes are rigged. So there's always a leader of the Russian Communist Party that runs, and then there's always a leader, I think, of the Liberal Democrats that run. But they never get any votes. I think the biggest that anyone gets is the communist leader, and he gets usually 10% of the vote, and then Putin gets 80% or somewhere around that realm. So I hope that does address that the best I can, because yeah, there are other people, other candidates that run, but they're not really running, if you know what I mean. They're just kind of there to make it look like there's choice, but there isn't. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again, Jason Carpenter, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to that mom, who puts in a $20 donation. It's good to see once again that mom. And she said, so glad to hear the coverage over free Russia and to see Russians taking their country back. And Navalny may have been the end of Putin after all. And also, call your family. You never know how long you'll have them. Call your family.
Call your family. Call your family. But thank you so much for the support, that mom. And it's great to have you back in here, because you're that mom. You're that mom. But beyond that, it is great to hear about free Russia. And I got to say this as well, Matthew. I'm not sure if I'm just seeing this, but we're like one of the only channels that actually gives serious coverage to the Free Russian Army.
I've seen maybe one other, but we're the only one really going really, really deep into depth about it. But other people are covering it as a side story.
But it's wild to me that people are covering it as a side story, because right now, hearing the info we had today and doing all the analysis I explained on stream, they're very close to Belgorod. That is big news. This is a major city right on the border, and they're about to possibly start sieging it and actually taking it over. And no one is really covering that. It's wild to me. But I'm more than happy to cover it, because this has been a long time coming in Russia, something like this. We saw them grow from being a tiny little border raid up in the Bryansk Oblast to now they are a true fighting force, actually pushing forward, taking ground, and holding it inside of Russia. It's incredible to see that. I love to see it. I'm so happy that you like to hear that news, because it's news I find very important. I actually prioritize that news over the ongoing Ukraine war, because the Ukraine war is right now it's going, of course, and it's active. No disrespect to the Ukrainian soldiers fighting in the war, because it's a honorable thing they're doing. But the Free Russian Army has a chance to do something we've never seen before in this war or in history inside of Russia. And so that's why I'm putting so much emphasis and coverage into it, because it has so much potential at this moment. And I love to hear that you enjoy that. And it is good to see that the Russians are finally trying to take their country back from the dictators and regimes that have ruled Russia for hundreds of years since the end of Mongol reign in the area. And maybe Navalny had something to do with this a little bit, at least the death of Navalny. But I have a feeling that this has other factors at play. A lot of Ukrainian support behind it. And also, call your families, folks. You do never really know how long you'll have them, and it's always good to call your family and talk to them, because otherwise, they might be gone one day, and if you really love them, you'll miss the fact that you didn't call them and tell them that you loved them, or at least got to know them a little bit better. And so with that, thank you so much once again, that mom, for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Chase Maddie, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, Chase Maddie, for the second support of the night. He says, I'd pay this 15 if we could just watch a tiny bit of that two-group video again with the analysis. And thanks.
Dagnabbit, Chase Maddie. I would. Oh, I would. But I don't know what week it was. I don't even know what day it was. I would show it again if I could. But I don't know where that marker is at this point because we cover so many of them a week that if it's like 2 weeks ago, I would have to look through like 700 or 800 markers to find out which one it was and then play it. So if one of y'all find it, let us know, and we'll just go back to that stream and play that stream on this stream. It'll be like Streamception, and we'll talk about the two group thing. But still, thank you so much for the support, Chase Maddie, and helping this channel to keep on running. I would do that if we could, but it would probably be really difficult right now, unless if we have a Lee Spring Army archivist that can get us the exact timestamp and day and stream that happened on, and then we will go back and check it out. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you, Chase Maddie, for being a channel legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Poleus, who says, Howdy LSA. I've been watching since day 60, and now that I'm in the U.S. Navy, I finally got some money to support. And keep up the good work. Hey. And also, thank you for your service. Now that you're in the U.S. Navy, you get to say, you get to hear that. Thank you very much for your service. And also, thank you for the support.
And I gotta say, Poleus, that is great to hear that you're in the Navy. You can sail the 7 seas in the Navy. But beyond that, great to hear that.
Navy.
That's valid. I'm good. Beyond that,
man, valid.
Man, dude, you sit there and say, I think that the Navy is just absolutely incredible. It's the best branch in the armed services. And then, oh, that's valid. That's totally valid. 100%. 100%. That is the most valid thing ever. But beyond that, it is amazing to hear that you joined the Navy, Police. Congratulations to you. I hope you're proud of being in the U.S. Navy, and I hope you serve this nation well. The Navy is really, a lot of people say it's the Marines that are the first line of defense to the country. A lot of people say it's the Air Force that's the first line of defense. A lot of people say that it's the Army that's the first line of defense to the United States. But the truth of the matter is that it's actually the Navy that is the first line of defense for the United States. Because luckily, by great fortune, we are on very good terms with really all of the countries in North and Central America, and most of the countries in South America as well. So really, all of our enemies are across the seas or abroad, like Cuba, which is probably the closest one that hates us. And the U.S. Navy is the one that would actually protect us from most of the threats that come from overseas. And I gotta say that it is incredible to know that we got folks like you, Peleus, who are now in the Navy, and being one of America's first lines of defense to the threats that we face around the world, buying enough time, or buying more than ample time, because the Navy can hold its own all day and all night, for the Marines, the Army, and the Air Force to get to work dealing with those threats, along with help from the Navy. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for your first support ever. And thank you for being a Navy a Navy seaman is the correct statement. But I know someone's about to say, hey, he said it, and then I'm going to beat him. I'm going to get a wrench. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And also, no disrespect to anyone else. I'm not saying that the Navy is the best branch. Each branch is special and incredibly amazing in its own unique way. But you got to respect the Navy for what they do, because to get on a ship and be at sea for nearly 6 months at a time, that is something that no other branch has to do. Well, except for the Marines, because they put the Marines on the ships. So rather than the Marines and the Navy, no other branch like the Air Force or the Army has to just be on these deployments pretty much for 6 months on end all the time, even in peacetime. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Tom Exman, who throws in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Tom, as well, for that support. He says, can we take a poll? What percentage will Putin win? And Tom, that would have so few choices, I'm not sure if there'd be any options, because we all know Putin's going to take 99.5%. Well, what say you?
You know what, Matthew? We ought to run a poll on that. Run a poll on it and say, what percentage range will Putin win by? And then put the 70%, 80%, and 90%, or do 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And let's see what people think, because we know it's going to be the majority. He's going to win again. But by how much? Like, what are people actually betting on in this chat that he's going to win by? I'm actually really interested.
let's see here. Let me try to do this math. No, 6, 70, 8, 60% through 80. This might be a minute. Like, you can go ahead and like stall if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, we're just going to stall here for a minute because I'm really interested. I mean, like, I would be very, very interested to know. And also, another thing, you know, talking about the branches, did y'all know something that's really interesting? The Marines technically isn't its own branch. It's actually a department of the Navy, which nobody really knows. And it's kind of a little interesting because when you type in the U.S. Marines, let me go over here. Not now. We need to go down here. Here we go. Let's see here. Let's see here. The Marine Corps has been part. Yep, there we go. There we go. Right here. It says right here. The Marine Corps has been part of the U.S. Department of the Navy since the 30th of June, 1834, with its sister service, the United States Navy. It's actually a department of the Navy. Unlike the Air Force and the Army, which, you know, are under the Department of the Air Force and Department of the Army, the Marine Corps and the Navy fall under the same umbrella. And in World War II, and kind of in World War I, there was actually a great fear in the Marines that the Marines would just be, like, snatched out of the Department of the Navy, and they would just integrate it into the Army. That was actually a massive fear in World War II, and you can actually see it greatly in the book, let's see, I think it was the book called The Pacific by E.B. Sledge. He talked about that a lot in his book because that fear came up in 1942 and 1943 in the book. And it's really interesting to hear that the Marines were wildly fearful that they actually were going to become a part of the Army. But that's a whole history thing, and I bet a lot of Marines will talk about that all the time. And even now, the Marines do suffer from underfunding because they are a Department of the Navy, and the Department of the Navy prioritizes funding to the Navy more so than the Marines. And so the Marines actually have one of the smallest budgets of all of the armed forces that we have. And also, I think the Coast Guard falls under the Department of Homeland Security, or something along that line. It's a little odd, but we're not going through that here. We're not going through that here because I remember we went through that rabbit hole and it was just extremely confusing because it was like it belonged to everyone in the end, but we couldn't really tell who had the majority stake in the Coast Guard. But with that, I hope that does address that. Well, yeah, with the Old Breed by E.B./J.D. Macker, that is the right book. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And Matthew, it looks like everyone's saying 80 to 100%. They have high hopes.
He's got to win by that margin, man. 83% said 80 to 100%, and 17% said 60% to 80%, and only a measly little 1% said 10 to 40%.
And no one's
I have to agree with the majority, though.
And no one's voting for 40 to 60. No one thinks it's going to be a close call. It's either he loses by a landslide or he wins by a landslide, pretty much.
Pretty much, and I think it's going to be a landslide in his favor. With the disappearing ink and the beatings taking place at the polling booths, I think he might be set.
At the bowling booths. just start bowling.
They're going to get that bowling ball and bounce it off their head, man. You better vote for Putin, bonk.
Dude, are you voting for Putin? No. Dunk! How about now? And then they got a giant,
have you ever seen a bowling ball bounce? Watch it bounce off those Russians' heads. I'm telling you, man. Those Russian FSB are coming out with those bowling balls. I'm telling you.
Dude, they go into the polling booths, non-alcoholics, and they get so much brain injury that they come out raging alcoholics. It's how Russian alcoholism exists. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well, Tom X-Men. We actually ran a poll and answered that question for you. It looks like everyone believes he'll win by 80 to 100%, which I don't think anyone's wrong in thinking that. But with that, thank you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
In our next super chat is going to go to Jake. He is not from State Farm. It's just Jake. He puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Jake, for that support. That is very generous. 50 Canadian, by the way. He says, I've been watching for a while, and first time sending monies for your wonderful contents. And could we hear that A10 Warthog gun again?
Yes,
and I second that, Jake. I want to hear it again.
Yes, we can. It's America. Why not? Okay, so let's go get it. Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So, I got it. All right, so here we go. Here's the NOS. I'll be playing here in a second. Sounds like a vacuum.
It's an action run on the Taliban. This is back when we actually fought the Taliban.
Yeah, this
he
is
said
back-
they ain't alive no more. Man, that's a Marine back there or something.
And so I said, "Shit!" it's just like,
Wait, let's hear that again.
Listen to the people. Listen to folks in the back.
They ain't alive no more.
Damn. This is back when we actually fought the Taliban, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, dude, the commentary in the background is golden. Dude, they ain't alive no more. Shit. It's just like, man, really American.
Alabama.
Man, I like that fellow. That sounds like everyone I know down here in Alabama. But beyond that, I hope you enjoyed that, Jake. Thank you so much for supporting the content as well. It means a lot to us. It helps us to keep this thing running. It's incredible to know that folks like you enjoy the channel so much and appreciate it enough to support the channel and make it possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you just for enjoying it, and thank you so much for watching for a while. What's interesting though is that while you say that this is your first time supporting, and I'm not calling you a liar or nothing, but YouTube didn't tell us that this was your first time supporting, so you may have supported before. It may have just been a really, really long time ago. But nevertheless, thank you for your support, whether this be the first support, second support, third support, fifth support. We appreciate it, and I thank you so much for finding this channel worthwhile to support, whether it be your first time or not. But still, thank you so much once again. Thank you for being a part of this Lee Spring Army, Jake, and thank you for letting us listen to that incredible video of American firepower and not only that, overwhelming patriotism. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
In the next one, a big shout to The Planet is Dying. Very dramatic once again. He puts in a 10 and does not leave a comment. But of course, thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running, and we do appreciate it very much. And we also have a 10 from Connor Castile, who says, I've been watching you guys since day 6. And that's actually before my time, I think.
Yeah.
He says, loving what you guys are doing, and keep it up, and thank you. He says, how likely do y'all think it is for the Russians in the Belgorod area to join up with Free Russia and long live the LSA?
And I thank you so much for your first super chat ever, Connor Castile. Legend! And thank you so much once again for watching this channel for so long and supporting this channel and helping it to keep running. To answer the question, the chances of them joining are actually quite low. I would say maybe out of every 1,000 citizens, maybe 3 of them will join. And that seems like a low number, and it is. But the reality of the matter is that armed conflicts like these very rarely ever draw in large numbers. And so I would go off of the idea that maybe 3 out of every 1,000 would join. That would probably be a pretty good metric in my opinion, or 1 out of every 300. But beyond that, they're not going to be getting a lot of people. I have a feeling that if they take Belgorod, their force numbers are going to grow very quickly, because Belgorod is not a small city. It's actually a fairly big one, if I remember right. Has a population of 330,000 people. So if you were to say that 1 out of every 1,000 people were going to join, well, actually 3 out of every 1,000, and let's see here, 3 times 3, they would get about a whole brand new battalion of people out of Belgorod. Or they could try and get even more by incentivizing their joining. Maybe they could get it up to 6 people out per 1,000 or 9 per 1,000. But that would be my honest guess. And the best reason I'm guessing that is because there weren't really that, well, actually, it kind of depends on each conflict. Like if the Russians started bombing Belgorod while the Free Russians were controlling it, I would actually believe that a lot of Russians would end up joining the Free Russian Army, because they would, they would probably have family members that would get wounded and killed. They'd view them as martyrs, and then they'd go and join the Free Russian Army to fight against the Russian government. So it kind of depends on the ebb and flow, but I'd say anywhere in between the low estimate of 3 out of every 1,000 up to about 9 or maybe even 12 out of every 1,000 at its highest levels. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Connor Castile. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to VP the King, who puts in a 10 as well, and says, it is my pleasure to support this channel with my 10th ever Super Chat. And you're right, it is your 10th. YouTube told me. It said, thanks all the hard work you both do, and thank you as well. And it said, it is my favorite channel to watch on YouTube. And that is high praise. I'm telling you what, out of all the channels out there, including Mr. Beast, they chose us. Thank you very much for that, VP the King. You are the king. And Enforcer, what say you?
Mr. Beast, You know that
You
song.
better be
Matthew?
careful with that.
Oh
You
yeah,
come down here.
Oh yeah, man. He might send the attorneys this way, man. I'm scared. Apparently, Mr. Beast rolls with private security. Don't hurt me, man. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, VP the King, and helping this channel to keep running. And amazing to know that you knew that was your 10th super chat. Because I don't know if YouTube tells you that before you send it in, or if you just knew that because you know all of the super chats you send in. But thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for enjoying the hard work we do. And thank you for saying that this is your favorite channel on YouTube. That is whack to me because there are so many YouTube channels out there that have way more subscribers than we do. And I always think that those channels are the channels that people love. I always think there can't be that many people who love our channel and find it to be the best on YouTube because there's so many other channels out there that do better than us, have more subscribers than us, you know, all that kind of stuff. So obviously they would have a much bigger and more loyal fan base. But VP the King, I'm blown away and honored to know that you find this channel to be the best and your favorite. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the kind words and the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $25 donation, once again, from Ari Sweeney, the Kiwi wife and Finn. And they said, for the Kava Fund, LSA. And Ari Sweeney, how do you know I eat kava? I don't know how you know that. But I do like kava quite a bit. If you're referring to the same kava that I think, are they referring to the kava that I think they're referring to?
Yeah, that's the kava.
I don't know how you know that. I really am quite genuinely perplexed because I don't remember saying that on the stream. But thank you very much for the support. And thank you very much.
I actually said that while you were gone, back when you were trying to focus on law school. I told everyone that you like Chipotle and kava because it came up. I like this and that. So Ari Sweeney has incredible Kiwi wife and Finn, both of them have incredibly good memory. So with that,
I was wondering if maybe we had just gotten the signal here. Was that the CIA agent in the chat? I was like, what? How do they know this?
What do you want? Do you want money? Do you want intel? What do you want? But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Ari Sweeney, and thank you so much for supporting the Kava Fund. Me personally, I don't eat kava much, but Matthew does eat kava, and he just gobbles it up. It's delicious.
It's good.
It's either that or Chipotle. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. I gotta say, that is great to know that you remember that. You remember a lot about Matthew. Colton Matt, shout out. Or more so, Colton Matt, sound off. But with that, thank you once again. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Andrea Fed, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you once again very much for that support as well. Andrea Fed says, you guys are the absolute best, and damn, that's high praise. And please take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for the high praise. It means a lot to us, Andrea Fed. That's the Fed. That's the Fed right there. But we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And thank you for saying we're the best. I can't believe that you find us to be the best. There's so many amazing people out there. For you to find us to be amazing. And we're not amazing people. We're just people. That is incredible. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. We are on to the next one.
And that live chat question is going to go to BC Skyman, the channel legend, who says, did Ukraine supply all of this equipment to the Freedom of Russia Legion?
Yes, they did. Because the U.S. and Western countries wouldn't allow them to outfit the Freedom of Russia Legion with modern Westernized equipment, especially after the Shebekino raid around a year ago. And so now they're entirely equipped with nothing but Ukrainian weaponry. So Ukrainian tanks, Ukrainian vehicles, Ukrainian artillery, stuff like that. That's why I'm kind of doubting that Belgorod is getting hit by RM-70 Vampires. It's more likely a BM-21 Grad because they use the exact same rocket launch system and have the exact same specs as far as the damage and range that they would possess. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, BC Skyman, an absolute old guard and channel legend. Great to have you here tonight, and thank you for throwing in a little question. And also, thank you, Andrea Fed, for sponsoring BC Skyman's question. Usually BC Skyman's actually the one sponsoring the live chats, but tonight it's the other way around, and that is really nice. And so that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Mark Williams, who puts in a 10 and says, I love the channel and keep up the great work.
And thank you so much, Mark Williams, for loving the channel, and we will make sure to keep up that good work. And it's thanks to folks like you who enjoyed enough to support it, we're able to keep up our work. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to GW North, who's always rapping the Cult of Matt, and puts in a $10 donation and says, marmot.
Man,
Man, GW North sounds like it's trying to get that caked up marmot.
Oh, hello there. Hey! Would you like a plum? Would you like a plum, Governor?
Put it on the fly. Oh, man. I wouldn't like a plum. Oh, man. But I would like my loyalty back. Oh, no.
You get none and you lock it. Oh, man. Dude.
I'll take a hot log with extra relish, mate.
Working at the county fair, are you, Governor? It's a tough night, isn't it? Working in a circus. There's two kinds of people in this world. There's the ones that join the circus, and the ones that join the Foreign Legion. What are you, Governor? But beyond that, I gotta say, it is great to have the Marmot here tonight. And I gotta say, thank you, GW North, for sponsoring that Marmot showing right here. Everyone loves the Marmot. And also, everyone now notices, and I feel like I was saying it before it was cool, this thing's be bricked up. I mean, this thing is caked up. Like, this thing...
it is caked up. Jacobo Lugosi put some cake on that Marmot. Hey, I don't know what he was thinking when he did that either. That Marmot shouldn't be like that.
Man, the French royalty said, "Oh, I like you to commission this painting of a marmot." And like Jacobo Lucebi or whatever his name is started getting done with it, and the monarch was like, "What the hell is this?" And then the painter was like, "I assure you, this rodent having a fat ass is important for the painting." Like, he's just like, I assure you, this is necessary. It's like, why? Why does it have padding down there? Like, why? It doesn't have it in real life. This doesn't even look like a marmot. This looks like a rat. It looks like a giant rat. That they got
like a nutria.
Dude, that's like the rat hat from Seinfeld, isn't it?
The rat hat.
Oh man,
I hadn't heard of those.
How do you spell a nutria? Let's go look at that thing.
An N-U-T-R-I-A.
N-U-T-R-I-A. Ew, dude, that thing is nasty looking. Yeah, maybe that's what.
Nutria. Let's see it.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh man, a nutria. Damn. Jeez.
God help me! It's my teeth are turning yellow. Dude, oh my god. Dude, these things are hideous. Oh, well, that one's actually kind of cute.
If they keep their mouth shut, it would look alright, but
they
dear.
They open up that mouth. It's freaking orange juice time!
Jeez, man.
Oh my lord! Oh look, they California invaders. the nutria.
Man, they got them like strewn out like trophy catches out here, man.
Man, oh my goodness, dude, these things are atrocious. I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, what the hell is this?
Oh, jeez. Oh my god, it's a New York Times piece.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Dude, you know what
the hell?
You know what this thing looks like it's about to say? It's like, "Hello, I'm getting moisturized." It looks like it's about to say that.
Looks like it's about to do a Beavis and Butthead routine with the way they drew that cartoon. Like, Beavis.
Hey, look at this. Oh, I need to perform my panel. There's something like. Oh my god, dude! Dude, animal segments are the best. We get such a kick out of these animals. But beyond that, I thank you so much, GW North, for sponsoring this Marmot segment. It's wonderful. It's incredible. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. We're going to be moving on to the next one. Before we do, OTube said, "Are their teeth photoshopped? LOL, why are they so orange?" Actually, they're orange because of a high iron content inside of their teeth, which allow their teeth to be strong enough that they can actually chew through things like wood, kind of like a beaver. So you'll always notice that any kind of a large rodent that usually gnaws through any kind of wood or anything more solid, they always have really orangish looking teeth because it's the iron concentration in them. Just a quick little fact, because they're ugly orange, but there's a reason to it. And so that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again for supporting GW North and helping this channel keep running, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Ted Marshall, who throws in a extremely generous $100 donation. And thank you very much, Ted, for your first ever super chat of the stream. And he says he's a big fan and a regular listener. And he says, "I'm looking to get my first handgun and would love to hear your suggestions for a lefty. And I'll tell you what, Ted, before the enforcer tells you all his recommendations, you can't go wrong with the Glock. Glock 19 is a great start. You won't go wrong with that. It only catches, it doesn't have a safety though. So if that's a deal breaker, that might be a gun you want to mark off the list. But if you're okay with not having a safety, Glock 19 is a perfect handgun. I'm going to go that far and say that. But enforcer, what say you?
Okay, so great question. And for looking for a first-time handgun, that is something that is very tough to pick out. It really depends on your preference. And to be honest with you, you really can't go wrong with getting a first handgun unless it's a high point. And if you get a high point, you're just in for suffering. I would recommend not. High points are cheap, yes, but high points are bad. And I don't like high points because they're low quality, and that's why they're cheap. You want to go for something a little bit more pricey. I would say a good pistol probably starts in the 600s these days and goes up from there. Glocks fall within that range. And while I absolutely hate Glocks because they don't have a safety, and also I don't like the really plasticky feel that they have, they're not bad in reality. A lot of people carry Glocks. Glocks are popular for a reason, and it's because they're fairly good. But one gun that I'd recommend, if you're looking at a starting gun, is a gun that shoots 9mm. 9mm, 9x19 specifically, which is what the Glock shoots, is the most ubiquitous pistol cartridge out there in the world right now, especially here in the United States. And so I would probably try and go with something along that line, that route, something 9x19. You can go with smaller. You can go with 380, 32 ACP, stuff like that. But 32 ACP and 380 sometimes well, really all the time, it's always for more compact pistols, smaller ones that you're wanting to conceal carry. And they don't really pack as much of a punch as 9mm will. So if you want a 9mm and you want my honest recommendation, I would pick something along the lines of a Browning high power. And let's see here. Let me go get this. And let's see here. So there is a difference in between High Point and High Power. High Point is a brand that makes crappy pistols. The Browning High Power is a very good pistol, and I'll show you what one looks like right here. This one is an FN Herstal High Power, or a Browning High Power, and it is a really, really good pistol. Best way I can explain it. Springfield Armory makes a brand new modernized version of the FN High Power, or the Browning High Power, and they call it the SA-35, or the Springfield Armory 35. It's chambered in 9mm. It looks just like a Browning High Power. It's designed off of the Browning High Power, so you can see they're pretty identical looking. And I think the magazine capacity, it's 15 rounds. So it's almost, I think it is almost like a Glock. It's missing maybe 2 rounds or so. But it is a all-metal frame. It's slightly heavier, but with a heavier weight comes less recoil and more manageability in shooting. Also
real quick, Enforcer, before you go on your next one, if you're looking for a good daily concealed pistol for concealed carry, a good Glock instead of the 19 is the 43X. I got that one about 6 or 7 months ago. I've carried that thing literally everywhere, and it carries about 10 rounds or so with the clip I've got on it, or the mag, whatever you want to call it. And I carry it around without a holster. It just goes in the waistband. So that's an excellent gun, like super compact, very nice. And you can even get the MOS version where you can put a red dot on it if you want to. I haven't done that. I probably won't. But you can at least add that if you want it.
And also, to get back to this, another thing that's great about this pistol as compared to a Glock is that it has a safety built in. So let me go over here. There's the safety right there in the back. You can actually flick that up and it will not be able to fire. And also, let me check to see if this thing has a palm grip. It doesn't look like it has a palm grip. It looks like that was removed. And I don't think any high powers actually had a palm grip. But it does have the single safety. If you wanted to go for more than just safety and you wanted double redundant safeties, the next best thing, let me see if they actually have any, no, we want handguns. Y'all have any 19? Yeah, they do. So the next best thing, I would not get a Springfield 1911 because they're fairly expensive. But the next best thing would be a 1911. You can get them in 9mm, so they can carry more rounds, but I would get it in 45 ACP. These things are double redundant because not only do they have a normal safety on the back of the pistol's actual lower, or whatever you want, it's off the slide. I'm calling it the lower, but it also has a palm grip safety, which means that you actually have to be holding the gun to shoot it to be able to fire it with the safety off and everything. So it has 2 safeties. So if you're really getting new into guns, this gun was actually designed for people who were not familiar with operating a pistol, so that way they wouldn't accidentally shoot themselves. It would be really difficult for someone to end up shooting themselves or someone else unless they really meant to with a 1911. So I hope that gives you my ideas. Either an SA-35, which is a Browning high power, or a 1911 would probably be a pretty good first pistol, but there are literal endless options out there. And maybe you're not like me, because I'm a little bit weird in the gun world. I usually like older designs because, you know, I like them to have a little bit of weight and a little bit of heft to them, generally for accuracy reasons, and also just because for some reason I'm geared that way. I'm built different to like them like that. But, you know, you may want a more modern pistol, and if you do, a Glock is not a bad option. SIGs are also not that bad, although some people say that they're fairly clunky. They're kind of wide and kind of a little bit cumbersome to carry, but there are literally endless options out there as far as pistols go. And then also there's revolvers as well. Not to go down that whole rabbit hole, but a double action revolver can pretty much do the same thing that a semi-automatic pistol can, but it requires a lot less maintenance, but usually there's no safety on a revolver. At least any of the revolvers that I have, none of them have safeties on them. But of course the trigger pull is pretty hard. Like, you have to pull back pretty hard to fire. So I hope that gives you some ideas, or at least some recommendations to start off with, Ted. And I hope that you have the best of luck going out there and trying to get one. Of course, being left-handed, though, and Ted, since you're a lefty too, living as a left-handed person in a right-handed world is always difficult. So a lot of the pistols that I'm talking about, they're really designed for right-handed shooters, but we're left-handed, so we just kind of have to deal with it. There shouldn't be that much of an issue, because usually the rounds, the cartridges ejecting out of the pistols never touch me or hit me in the face or anywhere else when they eject, even though they're kind of ejecting out right in front of my face. So I would say it's not that big of an issue, but those would be my recommendations. A Springfield Armory SA-35 or some kind of a 1911. You can get those in 45 ACP like they originally came, or 9mm with an extended magazine capacity. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And thank you so much once again for the massive support, and thank you for being a big fan and a regular listener, and finding this channel so worthwhile that you support it like that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gary Klementchek. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Let me go back and look. Klementchek. Gary Klementchek. Very interesting last name. I like it. And he puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Gary, for that support. And he says very simply, keep up the good work.
And 1 second, I have to... Let's see. Well, I'm very interested in that last name. Let me see here. Where is it from, huh? Where's this place from, huh? It sounds cool. It sounds really cool. Let me check. Origins. So let's see. Let's see here. What the hell? Why the hell is it so hard to find anything about this last name? It's got this.
Yeah.
I can't find any origin for this last name, like nation of origin at the moment. Unfortunate, because I'd love to know where that last name's from. It is a really cool sounding one. That sounds like something you'd hear in like World War II. Like, Klementchek, go up there and clear that, you know, something like that. That sounds really cool. I love that last name. But thank you so much, Gary, for the support, and thank you for encouraging us to keep up the good work, because it means a lot to us, especially coming from someone like you that has an incredibly cool last name. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for helping this channel to be possible and enjoying it enough to help it to be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a 10. It says, it's great to see the channel growing, and it's because people are realizing that y'all do such a great job. From a Navy vet. And thank you, Sully Canuck.
And thank you, Sully Canuck, for being a Navy vet, the Canadian Navy vet. And not only that, I gotta say, it's amazing to hear that you think they're recognizing it, because it's good. I mean, I'd hope so. I'd hope that we're doing good. And if we've got anything to go off of, Matthew's video that he put out today has to be good, because it's gotten 172,000 views. So I'd assume...
Holy moly!
Holy moly!
Diggity dog.
I'd have to assume it's good going like that, because the going's good. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. You are one of the folks who helps make this little feller possible. And if it wasn't for you, Sully Canuck, I wouldn't be able to be here right now. Hello to New London, of course, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I'll have you know, Enforcer, that video I put out earlier today got us a whopping total of about 710 subscribers, according to YouTube. So I was like a fisherman. I got the pole, I threw it out, and then I pulled back in 709 folks to watch this fine piece of news that we're putting out right here, if I do say so myself. Man, I'm telling you what. But with that, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Andy L, who puts in a 10 and says, my son is in the French Foreign Legion, and I hear from him every year or so, and Russia does not want to face these guys.
Wow, Andy, that is cool to hear that your son is in the French Foreign Legion. Really cool. That's actually one hell of a venture. I actually watched the entry process for soldiers into the French Foreign Legion. It is tough as nails. I mean, probably one of the toughest units out there. And man, I would tell you, no one wants to face the French Foreign Legion. The French Foreign Legion is a brutal fighting force to go up against. One of the toughest. I mean, hell, even in Algeria, even in Indochina, they were really tough to deal with. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Andy L, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make it possible. And also, best wishes to your son over there in the French Foreign Legion. That is incredibly cool to hear. And does that mean that he has French citizenship? Because I believe service in the Legion gives you citizenship, but I'm not exactly certain on that. But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a 10 and says, for the coffee and Yorkshire Tea Fund, and they get them corgis some succulent treats. And take a little live chat if you have time. To group.
And also, thank you so much for the coffee and the Yorkshire Tea Fund. I'm a coffee person, but if Matthew's more of a Yorkshire tea person or nothing at this point, he goes caffeine.
I had to cut out Yorkshire. Yeah, I had to cut out Yorkshire too. The caffeine's not doing me right ever since I got out of law school. It's like caffeine doesn't agree with my system. I guess law school just fried me all the way, but it took away my caffeine addiction like instantly. It's kind of weird, but no Yorkshire tea. I do have about a half a box left upstairs though, so maybe I'll donate it to the Enforcer, sadly.
Aww. But beyond that, we will get the corgi some succulent treats. But what are the charges? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Why, how dare you, sir? Get your hands off my... But beyond that...
Notice the headlock here. Notice the technique. You do know your judo well.
Good one. Get your hands off me. And
you, sir, are you there waiting to receive my...
my limp?
Something.
But beyond that, you know what's crazy is that they interviewed a guy about a month and a half ago, and it turns out that the guy, no one ever even touched him there. He just yelled that out of the blue just to say it.
Man, he was just trolling because he was pissed off he was getting arrested for something he didn't even do.
Yeah, dude, with all those news crews out there to catch it while it was happening. I feel so bad for that guy. That guy got falsely arrested and just dragged through the mud in front of an entire press crew out there. And he wasn't even the guy they were really looking for. You got to feel bad for that guy because he didn't really deserve any of that. But
that dude really was just trying to eat a succulent meal. He wasn't
really
lying.
was.
Like, he really was. And they just came in there and, like, grabbed the guy and started wrestling him to the ground. It's like, what the hell? So how do you expect someone to react? Honestly, though, probably not like that. Probably not start yelling crazy stuff like that, to be straight up honest. But maybe, like, go a little berserk.
Dude, that guy though, he made those cops look like nuts putting that guy away, because he's like, what are the charges? Eating a meal, a succulent Chinese meal, and it's like you can't arrest someone like that. You just can't, because like it's just hilarious that they're even arresting him. But anyways, with that, thank you once again for the support, Butchie777, and we will make sure to take a live chat. And what do we got, Matthew?
In our live chat question is going to go to LJ, who says, if Putin world starts to collapse around him, do you think he'll commit seppuku, hide, or be captured?
Usually sick people like him like to kill themselves because they have this thing where they can't be held accountable by anyone and then executed by them, because the honest truth is he would probably be executed for crimes against humanity. And so he'll probably kill himself, in my honest opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again for support. And so, well, actually, thank you, Butchie777, for the support and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Junebug72, who puts in an 8. And thank you very much. She said, good evening, Enforcer Matt and the Enforcer. I missed the stream, but I'm sure I'll catch up. And I'm sure you will. I said, take a live chat, please, if there's time. And Slav Ukraine.
And we will take a live chat, Junebug. And hey, it's okay. It's okay to miss the stream a little bit. You will catch up. I know you will. And so, what's the live chat, Matthew?
The live chat goes to Andrea Fed, who says, do you think Putin will nuke Belgorod after the Freedom of Russia army gets there?
No, I don't think they would. That would be a bad optic for the Russian government to nuke their own city. Because how in the world did they explain that way? Did they say that everyone turned against the Russian government? And think about that. People would start thinking, why did everyone in Belgorod turn against the Russian government so suddenly? Why in the world, if that's not the case, would the Russians just nuke that many innocent people and kill them? And they're our own people, our own countrymen. That probably would not be a good look. That probably would turn all of Russia against Putin. So I'm doubting that they'd actually do that. At least right now. You know, you never know. But I'm kind of doubting that for now. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed, who puts in the 6 and says, LSA, our shed here. And he says, what kind of supply lines do you think the RFA has? LSA. And he says, polling booths, stay away. Don't insert nothing in one of them.
And thank you so much for the support, Irish Head. And to answer your question, the Free Russian Army's supply lines are most likely operated by the Ukrainians themselves. And, you know, there's a lot of people are going to be like, what do you mean? And I think they are, because they were airlifting the Free Russian Army into Belgorod the other day. The Ukrainians were. And so I wouldn't doubt it that the Ukrainians are feeding them supplies. Because otherwise, where are they getting them from? They didn't get the tanks out of thin air. Those were given to them by the Ukrainians. And everything else that they have wasn't given to them out of thin air. It was issued by the Ukrainians. So I'm also believing that they're probably operating the supply lines for the Free Russian Army. At least in my opinion. But thank you once again, Irish Ed, for the support. I hope we addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carrie Ann Corzo, who puts in the 5 and says, as always, we appreciate all the hard work in making the news interesting. And long live the LSA.
And thank you so much, Carrie Ann Corzo. You already know. You already know what it is. And again, thank you so much once again for appreciating this channel, supporting it, and helping us to keep this thing running. Both you and Nick Still Thinking LSA. The LSA couple. And so with that, long live the LSA, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Keymaster, who throws in a 5 and does not ask a question. But thank you very much, Keymaster, for that support, and we appreciate it very, very much. And we also have a 5 from CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question, and we shall, CK, and thank you very much for that. And the question goes to Tom Exman, who says, what is the population and area of Belgorod?
330,000 people live within the city of Belgorod. And I hope we were able to answer that live chat fairly well. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Zontar, who puts in the 5 and says, I hope everyone is having a great weekend. And I'm going to crack one open and enjoy the Sebring 12 hours. And it's America's 24 hours of Le Mans, for those unaware. And good for you. Good for you. I sadly don't keep up with the American racing. I do keep up with the Le Mans. That's about the only one that I actually keep up with when it does happen. But I do like racing. I like cars a lot. But Enforcer, what say you?
You know, Matthew, remember when we put that American stock car in Le Mans and it ended up coming in 17th or something like that?
I think so.
Man, that was hilarious because, you know, everyone's building these high performance, you know, extremely beautiful looking European high performance cars to operate at Le Mans, and then we just throw in what the hell? It was just literally a NASCAR stock car. It was like a Chevy of some sort. And then it ended up coming in 17th. I mean, that's really surprising when you think about it, that car was able to endure like that for so long. But
yeah, man, they just build those things just straight raw, like those stock cars. So they're pretty durable.
Yeah, and it was actually cornering well and everything. I mean, like, I was like, that is insane. And let me see if I can go get the picture of that. U.S. stock car at Le Mans. Yeah, here it is. Let's see. We ought to be able to get the funny picture. Here we go. So you got all of these nice, streamlined cars from Europe, and then you just got that big-ass Chevy in there. Like, just sitting in there, you know?
Just stupid. A big old shell of a car over the chassis and everything. Because, you know, that entire shell is pretty much fake.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The whole thing's fake. I mean, stock cars are not stock cars for no reason, but that is still funny to look at this thing. And just look at it compared to every other car. I mean, the thing is a giant compared to the actual cars at Le Mans. It dwarfs them. And this thing somehow ended up coming up in 17th place. That's just bizarre to think about. And everyone's saying, can it turn right? It did. It actually turned right and left. It did everything. It did everything better than most cars at Le Mans could, which is just wild because it didn't, like it was done as a joke. They were like, what would happen if we took this car and we just dropped it at Le Mans and then just saw how it did? And it did way better than anyone ever thought it would. And I think that's hilarious, and I think that it's a testament to American engineering. Because I never believed it would do that well. I thought this thing would end up puttering out at the very beginning and giving up. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support, Zontar. Best of luck to you watching the Sebring 12 hours. I hope it's a fun one. I hope it's an interesting one. And I hope that it's something like this. Not America somehow exceeding expectations and coming up in 17th place, but something that's just interesting. And I found this to be very interesting when it happened. But with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Governor Ivy, who's a fellow Alabama viewer who puts in a $5 donation and says, isn't there an agreement between the U.S. and Russia where they share the targets of their nuclear silos, and it would be interesting to know which is targeting us?
Yes, there is an agreement out there like that, but sadly, I've never really been able to find a good map showing that's up to date. Usually most of them I think are from like the 80s and the 90s. And you could go and check out those if you wanted to, but I want to show something that is up to date from the 2010s or the 2020s. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And thank you for your 5th super chat ever to the channel, Governor Ivy. And thank you once again for helping this channel to be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The governor's a high stepper. But we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Barry Woodward, who puts in a 5 and says, Slava LSA. And if you haven't viewed the Oscar-winning documentary 20 Days in Mariupol, I encourage you to do so. It will solidify the existence of the LSA.
And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping to keep this channel running, Barry Woodward. And I will take a look at 20 Days in Mariupol. I sadly have not been able to yet. And solidify the existence of the LSA? What do you mean by that, Barry Woodward? What do you mean? Is this channel mentioned in the show or the movie? I don't know. That's interesting if that's what you're inferencing. We'll have to go and check it out. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support, Barry Woodward, and always being here with this channel, always supporting us and helping us to keep this thing running, and also being an amazing Lee Spring Army soldat. And so with that, Slava the Lee Spring Army, Slava Ukraini, and thank you so much once again for the support and making this channel possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer Matt, check out where the underground clubs and moidas are in Malmo. I camped out here in a van full of Marabou chocolate. And here's the coordinates to it, by the way, so I'll send that in the chat so the Enforcer can nab them.
Nab it! Let's see here. It's not showing up for me. And there we go.
It's in there.
I found it. I got it. Oh, wait. There we go. Oh, dagnabbit. Dagnabbit. There we go. I got it now. Copy. All right. And paste. So, is this it? This is in Malmo. Oh, dang. Oh, goody goody. Just so we got it. Let's see. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
A piece of wood.
Yeah. Wow. It's like a donut.
Governor, you could flip this sideways and turn it into a stockade, Governor. Put Putin in it.
But where in the world are the tunnels around here? I'm not seeing any tunnels around here. Let's see.
Well, those would be underground.
Well, Matthew, I'd swear you could see them from above ground. Whoa, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh, Jack, the tunnels below the 9mm from the long blot.
Well, I'm trying to find where the hell this is. Can you help me out with that, Jack? Could you do it?
Say the 9mm blows the lung out of the body. But anyways, Jack.
I'm telling you, I was in the hills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping. But we found the GPS coordinates, but we can't find the tunnels. There's like no pictures of them here or anything like that. But there was always Plan B. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Helping the channel to keep on running, but sadly, there's not really a lot more that we can investigate here, Quantum Fighter, because the tunnels are, in fact, under the ground. But with that, thank you once again for support. And you know what? We'll actually drop down on the street. We'll at least drop down on the street here and check this place out. So what do we got? Why is it street?
Look, it's a street.
It's a street. What is that right there? Oh, you're getting the sick
barber
fade.
shop.
You're getting a sick fade, my boy. And let's see here.
Man, they're going to come outside and catch the fade.
Man, they really are. I'll fist fight those bastards.
Oh no, not the hot dog man. He's not gonna fist fight me, is he? Oh my god, not the hot dog
no. Dude, he's gonna hit me with a sausage water covered hands. I'm gonna be reeking. Oh man,
he's gonna hit you with that combination 1-2 relish and mustard.
We're gonna get hit with that moderator revolt. But anyway.
Oh, hot diggity dog.
Hot dog, there's a lot of bicycles here, dude. Jeez.
They really are. It's a bicycle city.
Bicycle city, I'd apparently say so. Is that a Ukrainian van? No, it's just a blue and yellow van. But I was about to say, no way. Is that cool? But nah, it ain't. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Quantum Fighter. Thank you for helping this channel keep on running, and thank you for being an absolute G. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Confarelli, another fellow Alabama viewer who puts in a $5 donation. It's good to hear from you, Confarelli. He says, that's the first time in a long while I haven't heard Governor Ivey burp while talking.
Oh!
And please take a live chat.
Yes, we're trying. We're trying real hard.
But that almost made me throw up. that one was too much. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Confarelli. Absolute channel legend as well. Channel friend and channel legend. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Zombie, who says, Enforcer, do you think the Freedom of Russia Legion are headed for Moscow for real?
I think that they're heading for Belgorod and Kursk right now. I was about to just say Moscow. But Moscow may be in the future itinerary. But for now, I think they're going to try and tackle Belgorod and Kursk first. But yes, I think in the big picture, if everything went amazingly and swimmingly for them, they'd be on their way to Moscow. And so with that, I hope that does answer that live chat well. Thank you once again, Confarelli, for the support and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we got a 10 from Uncle Chucky's Jeep, who says, I love from Armagosa Valley, Nevada, home of Area 51, surrounded by Creech Air Force Base, Drone City, and Nellis AFB with Vegas, baby. And check us out on maps. Slav Ukraine. And I'm going to ask you, like I asked the other viewer from Nevada, or close to Nevada. He's in Nevada. Do you go out to the Area 51 gate by chance? Because that seems like a tourist attraction. Like if you're out that way, it seems like you drive to the gate. Obviously, don't trespass on the place, but just go to the gate.
Where the hell is Area 51?
It's out there by Groom Lake.
No.
If you zoom out and look for the white spots on the map, you'll spot it. It's around the Tonopah test range. It's up there. See where Tonopah is up there?
Oh, yeah, we see it. But where the hell is it? But where in the world is it? There's Piper Peak. Where is this place? Can we just type in Area 51? I feel like
look for Alamo. Look for Alamo, and it'll bring you close to it.
There's Armagosa Valley, and I'm not finding it.
Where's Alamo, man? Punch in Alamo.
Man, I'm trying, man. I'm trying, damn it. Alamo, Nevada. Oh, there we go. We got it.
It's to the left.
Look at that.
Over Badger Mountain.
Look at that. It's wait a minute, to the left, over Badger Mountain. Okay. Here we go. Here it is, right here. So we finally found it. Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. This place is a little overhyped. For what it looks like. It is literally just like a testing range, pretty much.
We're most likely like not doing our testing here anymore because it's literally one of the most searched places on in the whole country for top secret. Why would we test our top secret stuff here? But it's a good attraction though. Like it keeps people distracted.
Yeah, I mean, like, we got a little private plane right there, and, some spare, mechanical equipment out here. Looks like, vehicles, stuff like that, servicing equipment, and, they actually have this very uncensored to be what it is. There's all the, federal contractors, security contractors, and, there's the Janet Airlines planes, and
That's because the important bits are underground. They're not above ground.
You know, I'm kind of doubting that, Matthew. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of doubting that because, hear me out on this. Wouldn't that take a lot of effort to build like a subterranean base under Area 51? Imagine the amount of like actual private contractors you would have to hire to have them come out here and dig a massive complex underground. And on top of that, where are those entrances underground? Because, you know, if you're putting
In the
aircraft.
hangars.
And I don't know. I'm kind of doubting that this place has anything underground. I feel like it really is just what you're seeing. I mean, yeah, there's probably some very classified stuff out here, but it's just, testing, testing of new aircraft, new systems, stuff like that. I know some people are about to get into the aliens deal. Is that an adversary squad right here? That looks like it. I mean, their camouflage is pretty dark. I mean, that, of course, like, we can't really tell too well. It might be like an adversary squad kind of a thing right here. Or they may be testing some kind of a new paint or something, who knows. But let's see, then they have a Black Hawk. That's fairly mundane. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot. Yeah, honestly, the way they put stuff out here is just kind of sloppy. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, no need to be neat, man. They got plenty of real estate to work with.
Yeah, it's like damn Minecraft sandbox mode out here. They just do whatever they want, park stuff however they want. Like, what the hell is this? Like, and then they just leave stuff to rot, it looks like. Some of the stuff looks like it's rotted, possibly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, y'all. I don't really think that this place is much of anything. Of course, we're sponsored by the CIA. So I'm just kidding, we're not. But I don't know. It just doesn't look like much. And then here's their extended runway that they built. And even this doesn't look like it's in that hot a shape.
Oh, they don't use that anymore, I don't think. I think that was for the U-2 when they were testing it.
I think that was for the SR-71 though, because they had to go so fast to land, they had to build the extended strip.
You're right.
Yeah, but I don't really think there's much to this place, to be honest with y'all. It's not much. It doesn't look like much. I feel like more happens at Redstone Arsenal here in Alabama than anything happens here at Area 51, in my honest opinion. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support, all the way from Amargosa Valley in Nevada. And really cool to hear. And we did check you out on the map in Slovogrady. But that's my honest take. I know a lot of people love Area 51, but I'm more of a realistic, pragmatic person. It's probably nothing that cool. It's just in the middle of the desert. It had a conspiracy theory grow around, and it became a legend because of that. But with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Neil Vizanot, who puts in the 5 and says the Coast Guard is under Homeland Security during peacetime and then under the DoD during war.
And thank you for sharing that, Neil Vizanot. I thought it was under the Department of Homeland Security, and that means right now it is. And then when we go to war again, it'll be under the Department of Defense. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Dr. Oetker, who puts in a 2 and says, I've been expecting you, Doctor.
Oh, we have? I actually got this also. I'm just kidding. But still, thank you so much once again for support. And helping this channel to keep on running, Dr. Okta. And thank you for your first super chat in the history of the channel. And thank you for being one of our British viewers. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And for our last one, we have a 2 from Uncovered Cube, Uncovered Cube, who said LSA. But thank you very much, Uncovered Cube, as always, for that support as well. And of course, LSA. And with that is our last super chat to cover. So we are moving into our live chat questions. And of course, we had the Morse code decoders of the stream first. Tonight, it's Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the LSA Signal Corps reports tonight's coded message is the Free Russian Army marches on Belgorod, and liberation comes sooner than ever hoped for, and long live the LSA.
And that's the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that again. That is the 751st day that y'all have gotten that dead on the nail. And I gotta say, Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I gotta say, very big respect. Very big respect. And I hope I was able to address that well. And with that, we're going to be moving on into the live chats proper. And I hate to say this, unfortunately, due to time constraints tonight, we will only be able to get to a limited number of live chats. Thanks to the overwhelming amount of support in super chats that people have sent in, and the amount of time that we've spent addressing those, and also the live chats that a lot of them sponsored, we have run out of a lot of time. So far, the question segment has gone on for approximately an hour and a half, almost as long as the news segment went on. And so I want to make sure that we are able to get some sleep so that way we can come back and run this thing tomorrow. And so we're going to be answering 3 to 5 live chats. How many live chats do we still have in the spreadsheet, Matthew?
3.
So we're going to be answering 3. Then we're going to be rounding out the stream. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Burke, who says, why is Russia doing almost nothing to stop itself from being invaded? For example, mobilization.
Well, because it would be a bad look. It would make them look like they're losing the war, and that may sway public opinion greatly and cause pandemonium and panic, considering that the Russian story so far has been that they're winning the war to an unbelievable degree, and it's only going to be won in a matter of days or weeks from today. That's probably why. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night, while Matthew makes a Toad and Frog together again joke about Groom Lake and Bride Lake in the chat.
I sure did. And the next one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, how much concern is there that Russia will retaliate for the loss of its oil refineries by blowing up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant?
I have a feeling that the concern for that is somewhat low, because that would be a huge escalation for the destruction of the refineries. I have a feeling that for now, the destruction of the refineries is not a major issue for the Russians until they start tapping into their strategic oil reserves and start to deplete those rapidly. Once that occurs, then I will most likely assume that they would start to consider some kind of serious action against the Ukrainians, or maybe negotiations. But for now, I don't think they'll try and conduct any kind of nuclear warfare of any sort against the Ukrainians for attacking the refineries. And I'm sure that the Ukrainians have also weighed the risks of that as well, and have decided that the risk is marginal. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Slim, who says, whatever happened to Vladimir Klitschko? Wasn't he the mayor of Kyiv when the war first started?
He is still the mayor of Kyiv, actually. It's just that he isn't talked about too much. He's actually, at this point, kind of at odds with Zelensky at the moment, due to different reasons. But he's kind of just faded into silence, pretty much, at least for the general public. He's still there, though. He's still the mayor of Kyiv. And I forgot what happened, but I think the Ukrainian government started looking into him for something. But I hope that addresses that the best we can. And really quickly, before we go, while that was the final question tonight, thank you so much, Point of Guinness, for the £5 super chat saying, search for this video on YouTube. I think you'll find it interesting why Ukraine is deploying special forces to Africa, from the Wall Street Journal News. I would love to play that, but the Wall Street Journal would copyright us for playing their clip, so sadly we wouldn't be able to show that on stream. But I have seen it before, and it is really interesting. And thank you once again for support as well, Point of Guinness, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I gotta thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure, and I cannot say that enough, to be able to run this stream for all of y'all. At the peak tonight, there were 8,000 people here, and there's been 56,200 people who have watched this stream since it began. We are very honored by each and every one of y'all, and your presence here, and the kind of weight that you put into our news reporting. It means a great deal to us, and I cannot tell y'all how much I appreciate y'all being here, and how much Matthew appreciates y'all being here as well.
Yes.
This community is absolutely incredible to both of us, and we do everything within our power to make sure to deliver the news to y'all as accurately and as informationally as we can, and also make sure that it's not too overbearing or too over-emotional, so that way y'all can get the information y'all are here for without getting overloaded. Of course, if you do enjoy the way that we cover this news here on this channel, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because we run these streams every single day of the week except for Monday at the exact same time every night, covering picture and video evidence that we have of what's been happening inside of Russia and Ukraine so far during the war, and also other areas of the world whenever that applies. But with that, I also have to say a couple of other things as well. If these streams are not for you, and sometimes they aren't. Sometimes people don't like these streams because they're kind of a little long-winded for some people, and some people don't have 3.5 hours of time to spend watching the stream. And if you're one of those people, that's totally fine. We actually have something just for you, which are the short war video summaries that we put out almost every day. The best case scenario would be 7 days a week, but sometimes there isn't enough news to make videos on some days. So it's pretty much every day we can make them whenever there's enough news. And those are about 10 to 12 minutes long and cover the biggest points of news from each day of the war. So it makes it a little bit more condensed where you can get it in a shorter format. But with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great and fantastic stream tonight. And also, if you haven't already, go to officialenforcerstore.com and go sign up over there for notifications for the merch store. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and be sure to join us tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern, and good night for now.
Yes.